When Lu Huahua thanked her, Shang Guanxian didn't take it to heart. She turned to Su Zimo with a smile. "You were right," she said. "In life, what people really seek is pain. Just like you men say, eat meat in great chunks, drink wine in great gulps. To die beneath the peony blossom, and be a romantic ghost even in death. Life is short. You might as well live it however you want." Su Zimo chuckled. "So you've suddenly figured it out?" "Not exactly suddenly," Shang Guanxian replied. "I used to think violence couldn't solve anything. But when I killed that Luoji just now, I felt so free. Some things can only be solved by violence." She smiled faintly. "You're up next. That army breaker is the holy son of the many weapons god sect. His strength isn't to be underestimated. Don't mess this up." "Don't worry," Su Zimo said with a grin. Su Zimo versus Army Breaker. With the referee's loud announcement, Su Zimo walked step by step onto the arena. The crowd fell silent. On the opposite side, a tall, broad-shouldered man in a crimson robe approached. His presence was sharp, like a blade drawn from its sheath. Army Breaker. His eyes were like swords, calmly fixed on Su Zimo. Around him, the air shimmered with weapon intent so strong it distorted the space. It was as if he himself were the master of all weapons. His eyes were blades, his arms knives, his legs staves, his body an axe. The aura of 18 kinds of weapons surged and intertwined around him, until standing before Su Zimo no longer seemed a man, but a living weapon. To temper the body as a weapon, to forge oneself until godlike, that was the creed of the many weapons god sect. As its holy son, Army Breaker embodied this perfectly. Since childhood, he had treated himself as a weapon. With every casual wave, thousands of sword and blade intents cut through the air. "Fight!" Army Breaker said calmly. "All along, I saw Xiao Anshan as my greatest rival. But your appearance has added some uncertainty to this chaos fire god realm. Everyone thought the final victor would be decided between me and him." "You're impressive," Su Zimo replied. "To temper your body into a weapon must have cost you great suffering. Your will is strong, your mind unshakable. If I hadn't appeared, you'd indeed have been Xiao Anshan's equal." "From the sound of it, you think the outcome's already decided," Army Breaker said with a faint smile. "You're that sure you'll win?" "From the moment I stepped onto this stage," Su Zimo said evenly. "The match was already over. Then let me see whether your arrogance matches your strength," Army Breaker shouted. With a wave of his hand, a tide of blade intent roared out. The surrounding void split open like tofu under its force. Su Zimo raised his head and clenched his right hand in midair. The space itself seemed to collapse into his grip. There was a loud crack, and the blade intent shattered completely, dissolving into nothingness. Army Breaker frowned. He lifted his head and swung his arm again. From the heavens, a mighty spear of energy condensed, humming with killing will. The spear, king of all weapons. With the spear, command the world. With the spear, rule the heavens. Army Breaker grasped the spear and thrust it toward Su Zimo's face. Su Zimo slowly drew Shadow Tyrant from his back, blocking the incoming strike. Sparks burst with a deafening clang as the two weapons clashed. Their figures blurred past each other and separated once more. Again, Army Breaker roared. This time, two spears formed at his sides, while two flying swords appeared beneath his feet. He charged forward like a storm of weapons. Su Zimo frowned slightly. The power radiating from Army Breaker's body made even the air tremble. Su Zimo spun Shadow Tyrant in a half-arc. The sky filled with blade energy, slashing across the void. When blade met body, the spears shattered, the swords vanished, and Army Breaker was blasted backward. "Incredible," Army Breaker said with a grin as he climbed to his feet. "When it comes to pure blade technique, I can't match you." "You haven't been cultivating the blade," Su Zimo said, shaking his head. "You've been cultivating the weapon body. There's no comparison. Let me see your 100-weapon battle body." The so-called 100-weapon battle body transformed every part of the cultivator into a weapon. Every punch, every kick carried infinite weapon intent, sharp beyond measure, dominance incarnate. Fine. Army Breaker laughed heartily. His body erupted with the will of countless weapons. Around the arena, all spectators who carried swords or blades felt them tremble and hum in response, acknowledging Army Breaker's supremacy. Yet Army Breaker ignored them. All his weapon intent surged toward Shadow Tyrant, trying to seize control of Suzumo's blade, defeat the man by conquering his weapon. Suzumo laughed lightly. You're still too green if you think you can take Shadow Tyrant from me. He released his grip, letting Shadow Tyrant hover freely before him, inviting Army Breaker's challenge. But Army Breaker immediately sensed that his weapon intent had struck something unyielding, as if crashing against the indestructible soul of a blade. His will couldn't move Shadow Tyrant at all. Remarkable, Army Breaker said in awe. Even at full power, my weapon intent can control Shao Anshan's sword. But yours is beyond anything I imagined. You're like a bottomless abyss. Take my blade, Suzumo said, laughing. He raised Shadow Tyrant high overhead, its edge pointing toward the heavens. Endless blade intent surged upward, linking with the boundless void. A thunderous boom shook the arena as a sea of blades fell from the sky, crashing down upon Army Breaker's weapon-forged body.
Huila diblada Honduras, y Andura.
Army Breaker roared. As long as weapon intent exists, I exist. Despite his defiance, Suzumo remained calm. He opened his mouth and uttered a single word. Extinguish. That one word rang like a divine decree. All laws fell silent. All weapon intent vanished. The void became utterly still. Army Breaker was slammed into the ground, pinned beneath the weight of Suzumo's will. Powerful, Army Breaker laughed breathlessly. So powerful it makes me tremble. I thought I'd lose, but not this fast. Not this completely, without a shred of resistance. I'll spare your life, Suzumo said. No need, Army Breaker replied solemnly. I have one technique, my own creation. It's unstable, which is why I've never used it. But today, before all of Chaos Fire God Realm, I'll show it to you. If I fall afterward, I'll have no regrets. Suzumo didn't try to stop him. Everyone had their own path. Some preferred survival. Others would rather burn bright even for an instant. Then show me. Watch closely. Army Breaker laughed, his aura surging. This technique is called Heaven-Piercing God Soldiers. Heaven-Piercing God Soldiers. Suzumo murmured to himself, anticipation flickering in his eyes. Suzumo always admired those who created their own martial techniques or cultivation methods. The world needed fresh blood, people who could carve their own paths, not merely inherit what the previous generations had left behind. If everyone only followed the old ways, how could cultivation ever flourish and blossom in countless forms? So when he heard the name Heaven-Piercing God Soldiers, Suzumo naturally wanted to see it for himself. Army Breaker slowly closed his eyes. Immense power surged throughout his body, pouring into every inch of his flesh. His body, which had been tempered into countless weapons over the years, began to glow with a faint, dim light. This guy's crazy. He's drawing out the souls of his weapons. He'll die doing that. Are all these prodigies insane? The spectators didn't understand but whispered anxiously among themselves. The weapon soul was the very essence of a weapon. Without it, a weapon became nothing more than scrap metal, decayed and useless. But Army Breaker was a weapon himself. By extracting his weapon souls, he was practically taking his own life. No wonder you said the technique wasn't complete, Suzumo muttered. You probably never found a substitute for those weapon souls, did you? This was a move that cost one's life. No wonder Army Breaker had never shown it before. As all the weapon souls gathered together, Army Breaker's body suddenly aged in an instant, as if 100 years had passed in a breath. His body grew frail, even standing became difficult. His black hair turned snow-white, yet there was no panic on his face, only a calm smile, a look of release. Above his head, countless weapon souls condensed into the shape of a single spear. I've always liked the spear, the king of all weapons, Army Breaker said with effort, forcing himself to stand. Today, I'll live and die with the spear. Holding the spear in his trembling hand, his figure began to blur, merging with the weapon itself. The spear shot forward toward Su Zimo, its tip radiating endless brilliance. The void shattered, thunderous explosions echoing through the air. As the spear thrust forward, Army Breaker's body completely faded away until nothing remained of him. Between heaven and earth, only the spear existed. At that moment, Su Zimo sheathed his Shadow Tyrant blade. He didn't raise a defense. Instead, he chose to meet the spear head-on, to experience its full power. This was Army Breaker's final strike, the culmination of his entire life's strength. A blow as dazzling as it was tragic. There was a deafening boom. In the eyes of the crowd, the spear pierced straight through Su Zimo's heart. The weapon's soul dissipated slowly into the air, while Su Zimo's body froze where he stood. He's asking for death. Arrogant fool, he thought he was too strong to need defense. Now look what happened. He got what he deserved. Almost no one believed Su Zimo could survive. Even Xiao Anshan frowned. He didn't understand why Su Zimo would let himself take the hit. He secretly wondered, if he had been in Su Zimo's place and didn't defend, could he have endured that strike? The answer made Xiao Anshan shake his head. He couldn't. So he kept his gaze fixed on Su Zimo, wanting to see whether this man was truly as capable as he seemed, or just a fool drunk on his own pride. He'll be fine, Shang Guanxian said, gripping Lu Huahua's trembling hand in reassurance. Zhang Hengji's eyes were wide open, watching in disbelief. When the last trace of the spear's light faded, blood blossomed like a rose on Su Zimo's chest. He closed his eyes and fell backward onto the arena floor with a heavy thud. The audience fell utterly silent. Did they both die? Then how's the winner decided? A draw. If it's a draw, then the final battle will be between Shang Guanxian and Xiao Anshan. That'll make the tournament predictable. The crowd murmured in confusion. Just as the referee was about to announce the result, a faint cough echoed from the stage. Su Zimo yawned and slowly stood up. My God, he's still alive. The spear pierced his heart and shattered his soul. How could he not die? Su Zimo smiled. Sorry to disappoint you all. Good thing I activated the Gate of Eternity. That strike had indeed been powerful. Army Breaker's 100 weapons battle body, forged over hundreds of years, was truly remarkable. Unfortunately, the gap between them was simply too vast. Su Zimo had already stepped into the Saint Sovereign realm, while Army Breaker was only at the Grand Emperor realm. If they had been at equal realms, it would have been a much more interesting fight. Referee, Su Zimo called out. Why aren't you saying anything? The referee snapped out of his daze and, sounding almost resentful, declared, Su Zimo wins. As Su Zimo stepped off the arena, every gaze in the crowd changed. Xiao Anshan's in trouble now, someone muttered, a thought shared by almost everyone. Even though Xiao Anshan had long been considered invincible among the younger generation of the Chaos Fire God realm, Su Zimo's appearance had shaken that belief. An impressive match. Came a deep voice from the audience, followed by applause. The sound was distinct, deliberate. The crowd turned to see a tall, broad-shouldered old man clapping. It's the many weapons Godsex master, Ning Chonghong, someone exclaimed. Why's he applauding? His sect's holy son was just killed. That's what it means to be a true strongman, another whispered. Ning Chonghong stepped forward, approaching Su Zimo. He smiled faintly. Army Breaker's defeat wasn't undeserved. Your sect's disciples are exceptional, Su Zimo replied with a smile. One general's success is built on countless bones, Ning Chonghong sighed. But in the end, only one can be the general, the rest are bones. His tone carried sorrow. Army Breaker, the many weapons Godsex holy son, was now nothing more than bones and dust. It pained him deeply, but he wasn't a man who couldn't accept loss. After offering Su Zimo his congratulations, Ning Chonghong turned to leave. His steps were heavy, weary. The matches of 6 narrowing to 3 were now complete. The next stage, the final three competing for first, was about to begin. Su Zimo, Shang Guanxian, and Xiao Anshan. The crowd had been eager to witness the clash among the three. But to everyone's surprise, Shang Guanxian immediately conceded upon stepping onto the stage. She knew she wasn't a match for either Su Zimo or Xiao Anshan. By conceding early, she could preserve her strength and still secure third place, which granted her the right to enter the Fire Ancestors' place of origin. Why not take it? With Shang Guanxian stepping down, only Su Zimo and Xiao Anshan remained on the arena. "I've been waiting for this battle for a long time," Xiao Anshan said seriously. His sword was in hand, his aura rising like a tide. "Oh," Su Zimo nodded calmly. "To me, though, you're not much of a challenge." "Are you always this arrogant?" Xiao Anshan asked. "Call it arrogance if you like," Su Zimo said with a light smile. "I prefer to call it accurate confidence, because I am invincible." "Invincible?" Xiao Anshan gave a cold laugh. "Who in this world dares to claim invincibility? Even our fire god race would not. The path of the great Tao is endless. There is always a sky beyond the sky, beings beyond imagining. How dare you speak such arrogance?" "Arrogance?" Su Zimo chuckled softly. At his peak, only that thieving old man could stand as his equal. In all the world, if he is not invincible, who dares claim the title? Su Zimo couldn't be bothered to explain further. Summer insects cannot discuss ice. Some truths can only be proven by strength. Words were meaningless. He drew his blade, Shadow Tyrant, from its sheath. The sound of its release rang out, and the force of his blade intent rippled through heaven and earth. Xiao Anshan gripped his long sword, 3 feet in length, its body engraved with the faint outline of a dragon. As he swung it, a resonance stirred in the air, a hum of Taoist rhythm, vast and sacred. In that moment, Xiao Anshan seemed touched by the Tao itself. His presence grew solemn, divine, like a god descending, suffocating in majesty. "Ocean sweep one sword," he cried, slashing forward. The sword intent surged like an ocean, crashing toward Su Zimo. Under its crushing pressure, layers of space shattered. Su Zimo smiled lightly. He didn't even move. Shadow Tyrant floated in the air, and the infinite wave of his blade intent erased the sea of swords as though it had never existed. Second sword, Yin Yang. Xiao Anshan swung again. His movements were calm, unhurried. No matter how powerful Su Zimo seemed, Xiao Anshan's mind held only one conviction: to defeat him. And he believed he could. Confidence and power, both were his foundation. His sword cut through the air, splitting heaven and earth into 2 extremes. The world turned black and white, divided between Yin and Yang. The sword came cleaving down, cutting the heavens themselves. "You can divide Yin and Yang with a sword," Su Zimo laughed aloud. "Then I shall seal the heavens with a blade." He raised Shadow Tyrant high, wild blade intent roaring like a storm. With a sweeping motion from top to bottom, he drew a half-circle before him. From the arc burst a crescent-shaped blade light, descending from the sky like judgment. The very heavens and the arena beneath were torn apart, crushed under overwhelming power. What of Yin and Yang? They too turned to dust beneath that strike. Xiao Anshan's face darkened. He staggered backward as the ground beneath him exploded in thunderous roars. The earth collapsed, leaving behind a bottomless chasm. Spectators too close were caught in the blast, shredded to nothing, bones reduced to ash. Panic spread among the survivors. "Run! Get back!" someone shouted. "They've gone mad. Completely mad. If they keep fighting, they'll destroy the entire Chaos Fire God realm." "Maybe not. The Chaos Fire God realm will surely intervene. But still, how terrifying. To think the younger generation already wields such power. Perhaps it's time the old era fades and the new one takes its place." The crowd murmured in shock. Shang Guanxian's eyes were wide. In her hands was a crystal, clear and radiant with spiritual light, recording every moment of the duel between Su Zimo and Xiao Anshan. She knew a battle of this level was a once-in-a-lifetime event, something worth studying. Even a small insight from watching could change one's entire path. Master Su must have already reached the level of Sovereign Lord, Zhang Hengji said with awe. The Sovereign Lord stage, the peak of the Grand Emperor realm, one step from becoming a Saint Sovereign. Judging from Su Zimo's strength, he indeed seemed to have reached it. But Shangguan Xian said nothing. She could feel that Su Zimo was holding back, suppressing something. From the start, he hadn't been fighting seriously. If he ever did, she couldn't imagine how terrifying he would be. Master, is this what true power looks like? Disciples of the celestial mortal Holy Lands asked, their hearts burning with longing. Yes, Zhang Hengji replied, voice full of reverence. True power. I'll never reach such heights, but you're still young. Take Su Zimo as your model. Cultivate diligently. Watch closely. Battles like this are once in 1,000 years. Yes, Master. The disciples nodded fiercely, eyes shining with determination. Third sword, life-death. Xiao Anshan swung once more. This time he struck twice in quick succession, one slash for life, one for death. Two streams of sword energy emerged from the void, one to his left, one to his right. Life and death, intertwined, opposing yet dependent. The sight was bizarre. The two sword energies merged and clashed at the same time, growing stronger, wilder, feeding off each other's chaos. The twin forces streaked toward Su Zimo like twin comets of destruction. Su Zimo neither dodged nor raised his weapon. He simply shook his head. This life-death sword was meant to merge in perfect balance, he said softly. But your control is flawed. The death sword's force outweighs the life sword's. The harmony is broken. He sighed. This time he didn't even use Shadow Tyrant. Instead, the power of the death law gathered in his hand. Let me give you a little help, he said, pointing a single finger toward the weakest point of the sword energy. The primal Tao of death merged with the death sword's aura, strengthening it instantly. The death energy consumed the life energy in a breath, erasing it entirely. Without the life half, the entire technique lost balance and its power vanished. How is that possible? Xiao Anshan muttered in disbelief. The sword you're using, it's not your own, is it? Su Zimo suddenly asked. That's right. This is the Chaos Sword, the strongest sword of the Chaos Fire God realm, Xiao Anshan replied, not bothering to hide it. Anyone familiar with the Chaos Fire God realm would have heard of its power, the boundless might of chaos itself. The Chaos Fire God realm really went all out this time, someone in the crowd whispered, even bringing out the Chaos Sword. I heard that sword once belonged to the Chaos Fire progenitor himself. Normally, even the Realm Lord isn't allowed to use it unless facing certain death. But now they've given it to Xiao Anshan just to win. That shows how much the Chaos Fire God realm values him. They're clearly grooming him as the next Realm Lord. Su Zimo ignored the voices around him. Most of them, he thought, didn't understand a thing. People always assumed a weapon's strength was everything. But what did strength even mean? He said calmly, the problem with your sword energy lies within the Chaos Sword itself. How could that be? Xiao Anshan said, shaken. To him, the Chaos Sword was sacred, a symbol of their ancestor, the ultimate sword. A warrior who abandons his own weapon, Su Zimo said coldly, has no right to call himself strong. Look at your Chaos Fire God realm and the petty tricks you've played against me throughout these matches. Even your elders have grown foolish. His eyes glinted, and a faint smile touched his lips. His own Shadow Tyrant, it had begun as nothing more than ordinary iron. But it had walked every step with him, grown with him, shared every victory and wound. That was what made it his. From a piece of ordinary iron, it was tempered again and again by Su Zimo. After enduring countless hammerings, fusions with the true God Sword and Grand Pivot God Sword, and the integration of innumerable rare materials, the weapon was no longer just a sword. It had become more like Su Zimo's brother, his comrade who had fought through endless battles, sharing life and death with him. Whether in terms of power or understanding, the bond between man and blade was unmatched. Su Zimo could guarantee it. This weapon was peerless under heaven. By contrast, Xiao Anshan had abandoned his own weapon, the sword that had accompanied him through countless battles. On the eve of war, he had replaced it with the mightier Chaos Sword. The Chaos Sword was indeed powerful, but this was Xiao Anshan's first time wielding it. There was no sense of unity, no shared rhythm, no communion with the sword spirit. A true weapon and its master should be one, not two forces fighting separately. That dissonance would inevitably lead to missteps in the midst of battle. Against ordinary foes, such imperfections might not matter. But against a supreme powerhouse like Su Zimo, even the slightest error could mean annihilation. "I didn't strike when you revealed the flaw in your sword just now," Su Zimo said evenly. "Do you know why?" "Why?" Xiao Anshan asked. "Because I couldn't be bothered. To put it bluntly, you're not worthy. If I wanted to win, I could close my eyes and find 100 ways to do it. But I've no interest in winning through a method so cheap it disgusts even me." Su Zimo lifted his blade, Shadow Tyrant, and pointed it at Xiao Anshan. "Take up your own sword," he said calmly. "Fight me with everything you have. I'll show you what true fear is." Xiao Anshan slowly handed the Chaos Sword to the referee below. Then, with a wave of his hand, a sword from hundreds of miles away turned into a streak of blue light and flew toward him. The sword was entirely azure, simple, elegant, unadorned by excess refinement. When it landed in Xiao Anshan's grip, his aura didn't diminish in the slightest. In fact, it grew even stronger. "Its name is Azure Sword," Xiao Anshan said. "It has accompanied me for 38 years. Su Zimo nodded slightly, smiling. "Good. Now strike." Xiao Anshan closed his eyes briefly, as if gathering something deep within. Then his eyes snapped open. "Fourth sword, God Beasts." A deep, resonant voice echoed as the roars of beasts followed. Around Xiao Anshan, four colossal divine statues rose from the ground: Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. Each divine beast came alive, radiating overwhelming might that seemed ready to crush the heavens themselves. As Qing Jian pointed toward Su Zimo, the four beasts charged forward. "Interesting," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. Behind him, the colossal heaven-shattering giant began to move. Its form towered above even the four divine beasts. It pounded its chest, roaring so loudly that its voice drowned out theirs entirely. Then it charged, shaking the earth, shattering the void. Its strength could move mountains and tear the sky. The Azure Dragon coiled around the giant's arms. The Black Tortoise transformed into a deep blue shell glowing with ancient runes, blocking the giant's blows. The White Tiger pounced from behind, biting furiously, while the Vermilion Bird soared overhead, crying to the heavens as flames erupted, dyeing the entire world crimson. Fifth sword, Primordial Return. Xiao Anshan swung his azure sword once more. All things in the world have their source, from nothingness to existence, from birth to prosperity, and from prosperity to the peak. This sword sought to trace Su Zimo's origin, to strip him back to his most primitive state. As the blade descended, Su Zimo did not dodge nor strike back. He walked straight toward the oncoming sword energy. "This guy never ceases to do things that make people crazy," someone in the crowd muttered. Though Su Zimo was known for his audacity, this act still made their hearts tremble. "You want to see my origin?" Su Zimo said softly, smiling. "To tell the truth, I'd like to see it myself." Long ago, he believed he was the Infernal Lord, so his origin must have been demonic. But later he realized the title Infernal Lord was merely what the demon race had called him. He wasn't truly one of them. He was something that had descended upon the demon race one day, leading them to fight against destiny, age after age, era after era, again and again without end. Even now, Su Zimo did not know what his true origin was. So when Xiao Anshan's sword sought to reveal it, Su Zimo felt not fear, but anticipation. The sword struck him. The void fell utterly silent. The power of origin flowed wildly around him. Yet Su Zimo remained unchanged. It was as if a drop of water had fallen into the vast ocean, utterly insignificant, unable to stir a single wave. Seeing this, Su Zimo's eyes flickered with faint disappointment. Looking at the dazed Xiao Anshan, he said calmly, "It's time to end this." Meanwhile, the heaven-shattering giant had broken free from the 4 divine beasts. It smashed each one with a single blow, reducing them to dust. Then it roared and charged toward Xiao Anshan. Xiao Anshan took a deep breath. This time he didn't evade. He clenched his fist and met the giant's strike head-on. Golden flames erupted across his body, chaos fire, the mightiest blaze of the primordial flame God King physique. It was this very flame that once made the Chaos Fire progenitor renowned throughout the world, the foundation upon which the Chaos Fire God realm had been created. Legend had it that one who possessed the primordial flame God King physique was invincible within this domain, for they could commune with the ancestral will, wielding the supreme methods the Chaos Fire progenitor had left behind. Within the bounds of the Chaos Fire God realm, such a person was a true god, able to command the power of the entire realm. This was Xiao Anshan's ultimate trump card. Indeed, he had cultivated the primordial flame God King physique since childhood. When he extended his hand, the entire god realm began to warp. The void trembled as boundless power surged toward him, drawn under his control. With one palm he struck down. The heavens and earth shook violently, suppressing Su Zimo beneath it. "Infinite eruption," Xiao Anshan shouted. Far across the Chaos Fire God realm, a massive volcano erupted from the ground, blazing with molten fury as it floated through the sky, descending towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo looked up as the fiery mountain fell from above, aiming straight for his head. "He's lost, hasn't he?" someone sighed. Who could have thought the Chaos Fire God realm and Xiao Anshan both had a final card to play? The primordial flame God King physique allows him to command the entire domain's power. His opponent isn't just a man. It's an entire realm, the force of heaven and earth itself. Su Zimo didn't lose to Xiao Anshan, another added solemnly. He lost to the foundation, the legacy, of the Chaos Fire progenitor. The crowd murmured in awe and resignation. But Xiao Anshan's brows furrowed. He did not relax, because beneath that mountain, an immense power was beginning to surge once more. The immense power could no longer be contained. Beneath the flaming mountain, something seemed to awaken. The mountain began to tremble violently as countless waves of fire rolled down its slopes, streams of molten flame bursting forth like a living tide. Then, with a thunderous boom, spirit energy condensed in the void, and a pair of fists seemed to shatter the very heavens, smashing the mountain into countless fragments. From within the rain of blazing fire, Su Zimo's figure slowly emerged. His gaze locked on Xiao Anshan, silent and unyielding, as molten sparks drifted down behind him like burning rain. "I knew it wouldn't be that easy to defeat you," Xiao Anshan said with a faint smile. He didn't seem surprised, nor was he flustered. "But that's what makes this battle interesting. No matter what happens, though, you'll still lose in the end. Even if your so-called Chaos Fire progenitor were alive," Su Zimo replied, shaking his head. "I wouldn't fear him, and you're merely borrowing his power." Xiao Anshan snorted coldly. He waved his hand, and all the molten lava above began to gather together in the sky, coalescing into the shape of a colossal dragon made of magma. "Kill!" he shouted, stepping into the air. His feet landed upon the molten dragon's back, and as its roar echoed through the void, he merged completely with it. This was the power of the primordial flame God King physique, the ability to give form to the formless and dissolve the formed into nothingness. The dragon's might spread outward, its heat so fierce that even the void itself was scorched away. The force of it blew Su Zimo's long hair wildly in every direction. Su Zimo raised his blade, Shadow Tyrant, and stared at the charging dragon. The tip of the knife shimmered faintly, then split apart the flames of heaven and earth with sheer arrogance. The molten dragon lunged toward him, and Shadow Tyrant stabbed straight into its gaping maw. The two figures clashed and held their ground, locked in a moment of terrifying stillness. The dragon roared and thrashed, magma consuming everything in sight. A series of dull thuds resounded from within its body, followed by a deafening explosion that split the sky apart. The molten dragon shattered completely, and Xiao Anshan was sent hurtling backward. Su Zimo lowered his blade and stood motionless, looking at him with calm, steady eyes. Inside the Chaos Fire God realm, the watching elders' faces grew tense, their expressions darkening. If even that can't kill him, one muttered. Then what kind of demonic art is this man using? Anshan was wielding the full power of our Chaos Fire God realm, another said in disbelief. Could it be this youth has already stepped into the Saint Sovereign realm or even beyond? The words silenced the hall. In the vast Inferno Crucible heaven, only one existence from the Radiant Court was said to have achieved the infinite Tao, making him virtually invincible across the world. Apart from him, none of the 6 god realms possessed an infinite Tao. Their strongest powers were Saint Sovereigns. If Su Zimo had truly reached that level, it changed everything. The step from Grand Emperor to Saint Sovereign was only one in name, but in truth, it was a chasm countless cultivators could never cross in a lifetime. The red-robed elders fell silent, glancing upward toward the Realm Lord. The Chaos Fire Realm Lord's face was calm. Just keep watching, he said lightly. He's been given the Chaos Sword and the full power of the domain. If he still loses, then it's simply a matter of true strength. Losing to such a man brings no shame to the Chaos Fire God realm. Easier said than done, one elder murmured bitterly. He sighed, unwilling and frustrated. After all, Xiao Anshan had been raised by their own hands. He represented the face and pride of the Chaos Fire God realm. Xiao Anshan steadied himself, the azure sword in his hand shimmering with surging celestial light. He lifted the blade and looked squarely at Su Zimo. Let's settle this with one final strike. I have no objection, Su Zimo replied with a wave of his hand. This strike will decide not only victory, Xiao Anshan said solemnly, but life and death. So you're truly set on dying, Su Zimo said with a faint, amused smile. This sword will be everything I have, Xiao Anshan replied. Whether it ends in life or death, I'll leave that to fate. He raised the azure sword high. Streams of light rippled across the blade, radiating dazzling brilliance as its tip pointed toward the heavens. At that moment, the boundless magma and the full power of the Chaos Fire God realm poured into the sword. Every drop of energy Xiao Anshan could command gathered into this one strike. Around him, spirit energy whirled like a devouring vortex, stirring up a storm that swallowed the skies. This sword has no name and no form, Xiao Anshan declared. It is simply my strongest blow. As his sword fell, even the spectators below felt an eerie sensation, as if their bodies had already been cleaved in two by the blade. The illusion was so vivid that many instinctively shut their eyes. Su Zimo looked up at the heavens, expression calm, shadow tyrant in his hand pulsing with power. At that instant, waves of sacred might erupted from his body, soaring into the skies. Even Xiao Anshan's overwhelming force couldn't suppress his aura. Throughout heaven va earth, I alone am the honored one. Among the saint sovereigns, I stand invincible. The immense holy power blanketed the world, pressing everything beneath its weight. Xiao Anshan's face twisted in shock. In that moment, Su Zimo's figure seemed impossibly vast, so great he could only look up to him. Laws of heaven coiled around Su Zimo's form as he raised Shadow Tyrant, stepping into the void. He swung the blade downward, meeting Xiao Anshan's final sword head-on. A blinding arc of blade light burst forth, clashing with the raging sword chi. Both men were engulfed in radiance as sword and knife collided, their combined power tearing open the sky. Above, a black hole appeared. An enormous void formed from the collision of two ultimate forces. It devoured everything around it, shattering reality itself. Though the result had yet to be revealed, Xiao Anshan already sensed it. He knew he was doomed to lose. If I'd known he was a saint sovereign, he thought bitterly, I never would have fought at all. The other man had hidden his power too well. Still, Xiao Anshan took a deep breath and looked toward the heavens, hoping against hope for a miracle. The void began to mend itself as the black hole slowly faded. Finally, Su Zimo's figure appeared once more. He stood like a demon god, black aura swirling around him, his feet upon dark clouds, his body radiating a terrifying, majestic presence. Su Zimo wins, the referee announced before either man could speak. Xiao Anshan glanced at him deeply. He had entered this battle prepared to die. But the referee's declaration made it clear it was the Chaos Fire God Realm's will. They would not allow him to die. Or perhaps, it was the Chaos Fire Progenitor's will. Xiao Anshan exhaled heavily, then looked at Su Zimo. "You were right," he said quietly. "All my life, I've lived under the shelter of the Chaos Fire God Realm, like a bird that never learned to fly. No matter how fierce the storms outside may be, I remain calm. The Chaos Fire God Realm has sheltered me well, and because of that, there's much I don't understand." Xiao Anshan's expression dimmed as he let out a long sigh. "I lost," he admitted quietly, "and I accept my loss completely." Step by step, he walked down from the arena. Ever since he began cultivating, he had been invincible among his peers. This was the first time he had suffered defeat, utter and undeniable defeat. Even if he were given more time, even if the battle were repeated several times over, he knew he would still have no confidence in victory. His heart felt heavy and chaotic, as though something inside him had been overturned. He didn't know how to describe the feeling, part regret, part sorrow. When he stepped off the platform, a middle-aged man was already waiting for him below. Realm Lord," Xiao Anshan said in surprise as he bowed respectfully. He knew who the Chaos Fire Realm Lord was, a figure rarely seen, even within the realm itself. Even as his direct disciple, Xiao Anshan had met him only a handful of times, usually only when the master offered him personal guidance. "I've disappointed you," Xiao Anshan said, guilt written all over his face. The Realm Lord smiled and patted his shoulder. "Disappointed? Since when does one defeat equal disappointment? Neither I, nor the Chaos Fire Progenitor who founded the Chaos Fire God Realm, nor even the most gifted genius from the Inferno Crucible Heaven, none of us were undefeated in our youth." Xiao Anshan was at a loss for words. "But I no longer have the confidence to defeat my opponent," he murmured, turning back toward the stage where Su Zimo stood calmly, as though victory meant nothing. To Su Zimo, defeating him had been effortless, almost trivial, like brushing aside an obstacle hardly worth notice. Xiao Anshan suddenly felt like a fool who had strutted arrogantly before the fight, only to be revealed as a clown. "That's your heart demon speaking," the Realm Lord said gently. "Losing isn't what matters. What matters is that you can rise again. What's truly frightening is losing your spirit." "I understand, Master," Xiao Anshan said with a small nod. "May I have some time alone?" "Of course," the Realm Lord replied. "But be ready soon. The Fire Ancestors' ancestral lands will open shortly, and the three of you must go together. Get your state of mind back in order." On the arena platform, Su Zimo stepped down calmly, having secured first place in the Chaos Fire God Realm. It was exactly as he had expected, nothing to be excited about. From the moment he had entered the competition, the outcome had already been decided. Around them, reactions were mixed. Some celebrated while others looked dejected. After all, before the match, people had placed bets. Some for Su Zimo, others for Xiao Anshan. Su Zimo didn't care about any of that. His thoughts were elsewhere. Now that the tournament was over, he could give his qualification spot to Fire Bane City. After that, he planned to visit the Departure Fire God Realm to investigate the water beasts there, and perhaps find traces of the water god's legacy. "Congratulations," Shangguan Xian said with a smile. Zhang Hengji grinned. "A saint sovereign, who would have thought I'd see one with my own eyes in this lifetime? Young Master Su, you really hit it well. I was worried sick before the match." "What were you afraid of?" Su Zimo chuckled. "That your wager might lose? How could I forget?" Zhang Hengji laughed. He had bet his entire fortune on Su Zimo's victory. Back when he placed the wager, Almost no one believed in Su Zimo's chances. Now that Su Zimo had won the championship, the gambling houses were sure to suffer devastating losses. He also remembered that Su Zimo himself had bet on his own victory, and with stakes so immense they were almost unimaginable. The gambling houses must be in chaos right now, Shang Guanxian said with a laugh. They've made plenty over the years, Lu Huahua added. So many people have lost everything to their games. Let them experience bankruptcy for once. Do you think they'll refuse to pay? Zhang Hengji asked suddenly. Unlikely, Shang Guanxian said. They're backed by the Chaos Fire God Realm. If they default, it's the God Realm's reputation that will suffer. And after seeing what young Master Su just displayed, even if they had 10 lives, they wouldn't dare cheat you. Let's go collect our winnings, Su Zimo said casually. He was just about to leave when a man in a red robe approached him. The figure was completely shrouded in the garment, his face hidden. What is it? Su Zimo asked. Someone wishes to see you, the man replied. Who? You'll know when you come. I have no interest in meeting people who hide their faces, Su Zimo said flatly, refusing outright. It's someone from the Chaos Fire God Realm, the man said helplessly at last. A very important person. The truth was, the Chaos Fire God Realm had never humbled itself like this before. Normally, anyone would consider it an honor to be summoned by them. Hearing this, Su Zimo gave a short, cold laugh. Go back and tell your realm lord. I'm not interested in seeing him. Su Zimo, think carefully, the man said, narrowing his eyes. Su Zimo turned to look at him, his expression calm. Then, without warning, he reached out his right hand, grabbed the man by the throat, and lifted him off the ground. Would you like me to deliver your head as my reply instead? He asked coolly. The man struggled frantically, but it was useless. With a flick of Su Zimo's arm, he hurled him across the courtyard. The man slammed into the edge of the nearby platform, his internal organs nearly crushed by the impact. He looked at Su Zimo with fear before turning and fleeing without another word. Outside the gambling house, the once bustling crowds were gone. The place was quiet now, its doors half shut, the air heavy with loss. When Su Zimo and his companions arrived, an elderly man personally came out to greet them. Gentlemen, he said bitterly, we already know who you are. We've reported to our superiors. Everything owed to you will be paid. You can rest assured. Su Zimo and the others nodded slightly. Would any of you be interested in joining the Chaos Fire God Realm? The old man asked suddenly. What is this, a test from your superiors? Su Zimo asked. Not at all, the elder said with a strained smile. You are all rare talents. The Chaos Fire God Realm would be honored to have you. Su Zimo showed no interest. He looked toward Zhang Hengji and Shang Guanxian, curious about their thoughts. I have no intention of joining, Shang Guanxian said at once, shaking her head. I appreciate the offer, Zhang Hengji said with a polite laugh. But we know our own limits. I'm sure the Chaos Fire God Realm isn't lacking in talent. He had only come along for the ride with Su Zimo, and he knew the invitation was merely a formality. When they left the gambling house, everyone had made a fortune. Zhang Hengji was overjoyed. These new resources would be enough to greatly strengthen the celestial mortal Holy Lands. When they returned to the inn, Bian Wenzhou was already waiting for them. He congratulated them first, then turned to Su Zimo. Blade Tyrant, he said, has been found. So, didn't you say earlier that the Blade Tyrant was hiding deep enough? Su Zimo said with a faint smile. Before, the Chaos Fire God Realm deliberately blocked my investigation. Bian Wenzhou replied bitterly. But now that the competition's over, it seems they want to curry favor with you. They lured me to his location. Trying to be friendly now? Too late, Su Zimo sneered. Let's deal with the Blade Tyrant first. Everything else can wait. The Blade Tyrant is hiding in a mansion within the city, Bian Wenzhou said quickly. I'll take you there. Having taken first place in the competition, Su Zimo was now recognized as the #1 among the younger generation of the Chaos Fire God Realm. Even Bian Wenzhou had to show him respect. Su Zimo's power and potential made him a figure worth befriending, if not fearing. Since I already promised you, I won't go back on it, Su Zimo said. I'll give the quota for entering the Chaos Fire Progenitor's ancestral lands to Fire Bane City. You can send someone in my place. Hearing that, Bien Wenzhou didn't look as pleased as Su Zimo expected. Instead, his face showed hesitation. It's not that simple, Bien Wenzhou said quietly. Oh, I was planning to do as you said. But this time, the Chaos Fire Progenitor's ancestral lands are of great importance. Even without counting the destroyed Departure Fire God Realm, there's still open and hidden competition among the remaining 6 God Realms. He gave a helpless smile. According to the Chaos Fire God Realm, the quota can't be freely transferred. Whoever wins it must participate personally. Su Zimo frowned and shook his head. I'm not interested in the Chaos Fire Progenitor's ancestral lands. I may not even have the time. I've thought about this a lot, Bien Wenzhou said. If you can make time, please come to the Radiant Court to participate. If you truly can't, I'll discuss with the Chaos Fire God Realm again and see if someone else can go in your stead. Since Bien Wenzhou was willing to handle things that way, Su Zimo gave it some thought, then nodded. All right, it doesn't hurt to leave options open. Who knows when it might come in handy. As they talked, they left the bustling main street and entered a more secluded area. After turning through several narrow alleys, they stopped in front of a grand mansion. This is the place, Bien Wenzhou said. I've had men watching the area. He won't escape this time. One of his men kicked open the mansion gate. The group stormed inside. The interior was spacious and elegant. Rock gardens, towers, streams. A picture of leisure and peace. What are you doing? A group of people came rushing out from within. The man in the lead, a middle-aged figure, barked. Why have you broken into my estate? Bring out the Blade Tyrant, Bien Wenzhou said flatly. Who's the Blade Tyrant? I don't know anyone by that name. This is my home, the man said coldly, eyes narrowing. No one bothered to argue. Bien Wenzhou raised a hand, and the man was instantly slammed to the ground by an invisible force. What are you doing? You dare attack people in the Chaos Fire God Realm? I'll report this to the Chaos Fire God Realm, the man roared in outrage. Still so stubborn, Bien Wenzhou said icily. Then he waved to his men. Search every corner. Don't miss a single spot. His subordinates moved like wolves and tigers, spreading out and tearing through the mansion. But the longer the search went on, the darker Bien Wenzhou's expression became. There was no sign of the Blade Tyrant. What's going on? He muttered, unease creeping in. When the search finally ended, the result was the same, nothing. Don't tell me he escaped, Su Zimo said. Impossible. My men were guarding all directions. Not even a fly could have gotten out. Bien Wenzhou insisted. Then something occurred to him, and his face changed. A tunnel. Why didn't I think of that? Search again. Look for any passage leading out of the mansion. The men resumed searching. Meanwhile, Su Zimo examined the area. His gaze fell on the courtyard's pond, where water trickled gently down from an artificial hill. The sound of flowing water echoed softly. Su Zimo raised his hand, and with a thunderous boom, spirit energy erupted. A massive invisible palm overturned the entire pond in one sweep. Beneath it was a hidden trough. So there is a tunnel, Bien Wenzhou said coldly. They pried it open, revealing a dark passage that extended deep underground. No one could tell where it led. Bien Wenzhou sent men down to scout, and soon they returned with news. The tunnel leads outside the Chaos Fire God Realm, under a massive tree. The exit is buried among the roots, nearly impossible to notice. This was my failure, Bien Wenzhou said apologetically. Give me a few more days, young Master Su. I'll do everything I can to find him. From what I know, during the competition, the Chaos Fire God Realm was sealed off. No one could enter or leave, right? Su Zimo asked. You mean, the Blade Tyrant is still inside? Bien Wenzhou said, eyes lighting up. But then his expression dimmed again. Still, the Chaos Fire God Realm is vast. Finding one man would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. Unless he strikes again, it'll be almost impossible to locate him. There are other ways to track people, Su Zimo said with a faint smile. He glanced around the mansion. Above him, the traceless compass appeared, floating in the air. Spirit energy surged around him. Since the Blade Tyrant had lived here, his movements would have left traces. The compass could follow them. The compass spun rapidly. After a moment, a fine blue thread emerged from its center. Follow the blue line, Su Zimo ordered. They followed the glowing line, which led them beneath the massive tree, confirming that the Blade Tyrant had indeed escaped through the tunnel. But the line didn't stop there. It twisted and stretched onward, taking them back toward the bustling main street, to a grand and imposing estate. At last, the line stopped before a massive gate. Two golden characters gleamed proudly on the plaque above. Prince's Manor. The doors were made of burnished bronze, flanked by guards standing tall and grim, hands on the hilts of their sabers, their posture full of pride and authority. Why did it stop here? Bien Wonjo said helplessly. How could the Blade Tyrant have fled into the Prince's Manor? Oh, Su Zimo looked at him. You know this place? In the entire Chaos Fire God realm, no one doesn't, Bien Wonjo said with a wry smile. Now we're in trouble. What trouble? Su Zimo asked calmly. This Prince's Manor seems quite famous, Su Zimo said casually. Famous? That's putting it lightly, Bien Wonjo replied. In the Chaos Fire God realm, their prestige is unmatched. Even the Chaos Fire God realm wouldn't dare provoke them easily. He glanced at Su Zimo. Perhaps we should return for now and plan our next move? Tell me first, Su Zimo said. What's the story behind this Prince's Manor? You must have heard of the Chaos Fire progenitor, Bien Wonjo said. Su Zimo nodded. Even if he hadn't before, after spending some time in this realm, that name had been repeated to him often enough to wear down his ears. After the Chaos Fire progenitor founded the Chaos Fire God realm, he left, Bien Wonjo explained. That's what the rumors say anyway. In truth, when the domain was created, it wasn't just him. He had several sworn brothers who helped establish it. Brothers? Shangguan Xian thought for a moment. Do you mean the Sacred Flame Trinity? Exactly. The Sacred Flame Trinity, Bien Wonjo said with a nod. In those days, aside from the Fire Ancestor himself, they were the most powerful in the entire domain. When the Chaos Fire God realm was first founded, it was a small and obscure force. The reason it grew into what it is now, one of the 7 great God realms, is entirely due to the Trinity's efforts. The Sacred Flame Trinity brought the domain to its current glory. Their contributions can't be overstated. After they relinquished power, they retreated into seclusion and stopped involving themselves in worldly affairs. As for this Prince's Manor, it belongs to their descendants. Hearing that, Su Zimo asked, and how does that concern our hunt for the Blade Tyrant? We can't act recklessly inside the Prince's Manor, Bien Wonjo said, and we have no solid proof that the Blade Tyrant is hiding there. Your compass may be powerful, but it's still an inanimate object. Its results can't be used as evidence. If we offend the Prince's Manor, we'll be making enemies of the entire Chaos Fire God realm. You're afraid? Su Zimo asked bluntly. To be honest, yes, Bien Wonjo admitted without shame. I'm the Lord of Fire Bane City. Every move I make affects my city and its people. I have to think of them. So yes, I'm afraid. If you're afraid, Su Zimo said with a wave of his hand, then don't get involved. But just then, Bien Wonjo's expression shifted. His tone became serious as he looked at Su Zimo. Young Master Su, Fire Bane City is willing to stand with you. I'll even put my old life on the line if that's what it takes. Su Zimo studied him for a moment, then glanced into the calm void behind him. You've been advised by someone, haven't you? Bien Wonjo smiled bitterly.
You jest, young Master Su.
It's Bien Shershur, isn't it? Su Zimo asked. Bien Wonjo only gave a helpless smile and said nothing. Fine. I'm in no rush to see her. Su Zimo said, waving dismissively. If she wants to meet, she'll make it happen. Then he turned his eyes toward the prince's manor and said to Zhang Hengji, if your celestial mortal Holy Lands doesn't want to get involved, you can leave now. I trust you, young Master Su, Zhang Hengji said firmly. After everything he'd witnessed, he knew Su Zimo wasn't the type to act without confidence. And you? Su Zimo looked to Shangguan Xian. I'll always believe in you, she said with a playful smile. Then knock on the door, Su Zimo ordered. Tell them to hand over the Blade Tyrant. If they comply, we'll leave peacefully. If not, then we break in and take him by force. Let me go, Bian Wenzhou offered. He walked up the steps toward the manor gate, but the guards immediately blocked his way. Stop. This is the prince's manor. No one enters without invitation. Didn't you know that? One of the guards barked. Call your steward, Bian Wenzhou said, his tone stiffening a little. We're here because someone we're hunting is hiding in your manor. The guard sneered. Ridiculous. And who are you to demand to see our master? Get lost before we throw you out. You! Bian Wenzhou's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. City Lord Bian, Shangguan Xian said lightly, stepping forward. Why don't you let me handle this? She raised her hand, and a surge of spiritual power erupted. The two guards barely had time to draw their blades before they were blasted off their feet and sent flying. You, what are you doing? The guards shouted in panic. Go and fetch your steward, Shangguan Xian said coldly. If you don't, I'll leave your corpses right here. You wait. The two exchanged a terrified look and quickly fled into the manor. Watching her in action, Bian Wenzhou felt a bit awkward. He was the lord of Fire Bane City, the master of the Black Crow Dao Court, a grand emperor of prestige in his own right. Yet here, in the Grand Chaos City, no one even bothered to give him face. After a short wait, a group of men stormed out from within the manor, murderous intent rolling off them. They were clearly the prince's manor guards, each one clad in matching silver robes, their auras powerful and disciplined. In an instant, several dozen of them surrounded Su Zimo's group. Who dares attack the prince's guards? A loud voice demanded. The speaker was a portly man with a drooping mustache and an official's hat perched on his head. Steward Huang, it was this woman. One of the battered guards pointed at Shangguan Xian. Though Huang the steward wasn't much to look at, he clearly had authority. His eyes swept over the group, quickly recognizing Su Zimo as their leader. The fact that these people had come to the prince's manor, attacked the guards, and still stood so calmly meant they weren't afraid. Huang's eyes narrowed slightly, then he smiled. May I ask how our humble manor has offended the distinguished guests? It's not that you've offended us, Shangguan Xian said coolly. We merely wish to speak to someone in charge, but your guards refused to report our arrival. Huang blinked in surprise. Normally, anyone wanting to meet someone from the prince's manor had to schedule it far in advance. These people had barged straight in, of course the guards wouldn't let them through. Still, he masked his thoughts and asked politely, May I have your names? This is young Master Su, Bian Wenzhou said quickly. He just took first place in the Chaos Fire God Realm's grand competition. Their own names carried little weight here, but Su Zimo's did. As soon as he heard that, Steward Huang's demeanor changed instantly. A warm smile spread across his face. He turned and kicked the wounded guard to the ground. Blind fool! Young Master Su is an honored guest of our prince's manor, and you dared bar his way, he barked. Then, waving to the other guards, he ordered coldly, Take him away and execute him. The guard's pleas for mercy echoed briefly before he was dragged off to his fate. Watching the guard being dragged away, Steward Huang smiled and turned to Su Zimo. Are you satisfied now, gentlemen? This is an internal matter of the prince's manor, Shangguan Xian said with a wave of her hand. Steward Huang can handle it as he sees fit. No need to consult us. Then may I ask what business brings you all to the prince's manor? Huang asked. We're pursuing a fugitive, Shangguan Xian replied. He should be hiding somewhere inside the manor. If it's convenient, Steward Huang, Please hand him over. What do you mean by that? Huang asked in puzzlement. When has the prince's manner ever offended you? As far as I know, we haven't had any other guests recently. Let's not waste words, Shang Guanxian said. The man we're after is the city lord of Stone Flame City, goes by the name of Blade Tyrant. You should have heard of him. Never, Huang said firmly, shaking his head. You must be mistaken. Hearing that, Shang Guanxian turned and glanced at Su Zimo. Huang's expression was one of genuine confusion. No trace of deceit could be seen. Either he truly didn't know, or his acting was extraordinary. Su Zimo smiled slightly and gestured for her to step back. Above them, the traceless compass resumed spinning, the thin blue line connecting to Blade Tyrant growing clearer by the moment. Whether he's in the manor or not, Su Zimo said, we'll know once we go inside and see for ourselves. I'm afraid that won't do, Steward Huang said, his smile fading. The prince's manor is a sacred and restricted place. Outsiders cannot simply barge in and search as they please. What would that say of our dignity and reputation? We're doing this for your sake, Shang Guanxian said quickly. If you truly haven't had any visitors lately, then the fugitive must be hiding here. That's dangerous for your manor as well. Who knows what he might do? Allowing us to search is for your own safety. No one would criticize you for it. The safety of the manor is protected by our own guards, Huang said, irritation creeping into his tone. We don't need your concern. Why don't you let us conduct our own search? If we find anything, we'll inform you. It seems talking nicely is a waste of breath, Su Zimo said, shaking his head. Since you insist, whatever happens next will be on your head. What are you trying to do? Huang stepped back, his guards immediately closing ranks before him. With them at his back, he regained a bit of confidence. Young Master Su, he said, I know of your reputation, your strength is formidable, no doubt. But this is the prince's manor. You should know the roots we have here. Ask yourself honestly, do you really dare make an enemy of us? Enough noise, Su Zimo said coldly. His voice cracked through the air like thunder, reverberating through the void. Huang and the dozen guards around him crumpled as if struck by an invisible hammer. Each coughed blood as they were hurled backward, their internal organs shattered by the sheer force. You're ruthless? Huang gasped, clutching his chest. City Lord Bien, Su Zimo said calmly. Call them out. Bien Wenzhou nodded slightly. He hadn't wanted things to escalate this far. Surely it would have been better to talk things through peacefully. Once the masks came off, no one benefited. This prince's manner truly is strange, Zhang Hengji muttered. It's just one Blade Tyrant. Why hide him instead of handing him over? Who knows what secrets lie behind it? Lu Huahua replied. What they called calling them out was essentially a formal challenge to battle. Bien Wenzhou looked up at the black plaque above the manor gate. With a flick of his wrist, there was a resounding boom as the plaque flew from the wall into his hand. Then he rose into the air, his voice surging with spirit power. Would the master of the prince's manor please come out and face me? His voice echoed across the entire estate, not just within the manor, but throughout the surrounding streets as well. The prince's manor was located in one of the most bustling districts of the main avenue, so it didn't take long before a crowd began gathering. Isn't that Su Zimo, the number one of the Chaos Fire God Realm's younger generation? Someone exclaimed. The competition just ended. What's he doing at the prince's manor? Maybe he's here to join them? Are you blind? Can't you see the way they came storming in? They even tore down the manor's plaque. This looks like the start of a war. He's insane. Truly insane. Does he think defeating Xiao Anshan makes him invincible? Does he even realize what kind of power the prince's manor represents? The Chaos Fire God Realm won't stay silent. The manor stands for the honor of the sacred flame trinity. The God Realm won't tolerate this. The crowd erupted into chatter, thrilled rather than alarmed. After all, spectators never minded chaos. The bigger the spectacle, the better the show. As Bien Wenzhou's voice faded, the entire prince's manor seemed to erupt. Several overwhelming auras surged skyward, and two elderly figures stepped out, walking on air. "Who dares cause trouble in the prince's manor?" one of them barked. "It's the guest elders, the two elders of Hollow Cave." Someone in the crowd recognized them. Their presence radiated immense power, shaking the air itself. The sky cracked with booming sounds as they moved. Without a word wasted, the two joined forces, forming a hollow cave seal between their palms and launching it toward Bien Wenzhou. The crow shrieked as it collided with the glowing hollow cave seal. When the forces met, the two elders of Hollow Cave clearly held the upper hand. Explosions roared through the air, shockwaves rippling outward. Bien Wenzhou was forced back several steps, his face paling slightly. "You dare attack the prince's manor?" one of the elders barked coldly. "As a member of the Fire God race of the Chaos Fire God realm, are you rebelling?" "How is this rebellion?" Bien Wenzhou replied, his expression tight. "The Sacred Flame Trinity's contribution to this domain is known to all. Without them, the Chaos Fire God realm would not exist. The prince's manor represents their legacy." "Then speak clearly," one of the Hollow Cave elders said icily. "Otherwise, I'll drag you to the Chaos Fire God realm myself." "I never intended disrespect," Bien Wenzhou said. "But your manor is harboring a fugitive we seek." "How do you explain that?" "To accuse us without proof. How convenient," one elder sneered. "You accuse us of harboring a fugitive," one of the Hollow Cave elders said coldly. "Do you have any proof?" "Proof?" Bien Wenzhou knew he was on shaky ground. This kind of thing couldn't be proven with words alone. "If you let me search the prince's manor myself, then I'd have all the proof I need." "How ridiculous," one of the elders sneered. "Then we'll suppress you today." They represented the prince's manor, and every move they made had to uphold its reputation. Thus, they ensured they stood on the moral high ground from the start. In front of the citizens of Chaos Fire City, no matter what they did next, no one would dare criticize them. The Hollow Cave elders stepped into the sky, each forming the Hollow Cave seal in one hand. Their power shattered the heavens and crushed the earth. The very air split apart. The seals fell like colossal mountains, carrying the pressure of peaks themselves, roaring down with the sound of thunder. Bien Wenzhou let out a low grunt. Zhang Hengji stepped forward to stand beside him. "Let me help," he said. Bien Wenzhou nodded. The two unleashed their full strength. Their combined power clashed fiercely with the Hollow Cave elders. Su Zimo turned to glance at Shangguan Xian, who immediately understood his intention. The celestial flame in her hands erupted, transforming in an instant into a boundless sea of fire, surging, roaring, and boiling without end. The inferno swept forward and began consuming the massive gates of the prince's manor. She was setting the prince's manor ablaze. Such an act in the Chaos Fire God realm was the height of audacity, madness. Even, no one had ever dared behave so recklessly in front of the prince's manor. Even the Chaos Fire God realm itself would normally show restraint and respect. But Su Zimo didn't care. He wanted to draw out the true powers of the manor, the real decision-makers who still hadn't appeared. Perhaps his current status wasn't enough to compel them. Or perhaps they simply didn't consider him worth their attention. Either way, Su Zimo was unconcerned. His job was simple: to crush through all obstacles. As the celestial flames raged higher, the crowd around them went wild with disbelief. Everyone thought Su Zimo and his companions were courting death. This was sheer suicide. Crackling sounds filled the air. At last, a calm voice sounded from within the manor. "Why force me to appear?" A streak of icy blue fire burst forth from within the estate. It spread rapidly, freezing the raging celestial flames in an instant. Fire was divided between yin and yang. If Shangguan Xian's flames were pure yang, blazing and scorching, then this bone-chilling yin fire was pure yin, cold and ghostly. Yang flames burned the body, while yin flames attacked the soul. Now the two polar fires clashed head-on. Shangguan Xian's eyes gleamed brightly. "You wish to freeze my fire without even showing your face?" she said softly. "I'm afraid that's impossible." As her voice fell, immortal energy surged around her. pure and flawless. This was her celestial spirit physique. Though not as rare as a primordial flame god-king physique, it was still a formidable constitution. As her spirit body awakened, her power multiplied. The frozen flames reignited with renewed ferocity. In mere moments, the front courtyard of the manor was an inferno once more, the fire burning heaven and earth alike. The guards tried desperately to extinguish it, but their efforts were useless. Then, a deep sigh echoed through the air. "Must you really make me appear?" An old man wearing a long robe of deep scarlet slowly emerged from the flames. Behind him came a group of others. "It's the Flame Sovereign," someone gasped. "Flame Sovereign? But wasn't he killed years ago during the war against the water beasts? How is he still alive?" And behind him, that's immortal prince, the master of the prince's manor, and several of their elders. Many among the crowd had already recognized them. With so many onlookers, it was only natural. "Sovereign, it's you?" Bien Wenzhou's expression shifted drastically the moment he saw the crimson-robed elder. He could hardly believe his eyes. Fire Bane City had long been under siege by the water beasts. Before that, there had been another city to the north, Soaring Fire City. Soaring Fire City had been destroyed, and only then had the water beasts turned their attention to Fire Bane City. Fortunately, the beasts had hesitated to attack in full force, limiting themselves to probing assaults. That had been why Su Zimo's arrival had been so fortuitous. His encounter with the blue-skinned being, the origin of the water beasts, had ultimately resolved the crisis. Bien Wenzhou knew the Flame Sovereign because they had once fought side by side during the doomed defense of Soaring Fire City. He had personally witnessed the Flame Sovereign fall amid the swarm of beasts. For a long time afterward, he had mourned his death. "You're alive," Bien Wenzhou said in disbelief. "Yes," the Flame Sovereign replied with a solemn nod. "It was your doing, wasn't it?" Bien Wenzhou said bitterly. "That was your conspiracy. You wanted Soaring Fire City destroyed." The Flame Sovereign said nothing, but a mortal prince behind him shouted, "City Lord Bien, are you trying to lose your title? How dare you act so outrageously in our prince's manor? My position was appointed by the Chaos Fire God realm, not by your manor." Bien Wenzhou shot back coldly. "Or has your prince's manor begun giving orders to the Chaos Fire God realm now?" Since their conflict was already out in the open, he no longer bothered with pretense. His words struck deep, implicating not just the manor but the Chaos Fire God realm itself. The Chaos Fire God realm ruled over the entire region. It was no one's private guard. Hearing this, Immortal Prince's face twisted with anger. "Justice will speak for itself," he growled. "Bien Wenzhou, after today, the prince's manor will not rest until this matter is settled." "Your manor's sins over the years are countless," Bien Wenzhou retorted. "If not for the protection of your ancestors' glory, you'd have been wiped out long ago." He'd cast aside all restraint now. "I came here today knowing full well the consequences. Don't try to intimidate me. It won't work." Immortal Prince's fury erupted. "Flame Sovereign, seize him for me." The Flame Sovereign's eyes narrowed slightly. But before he could move, Shangguan stepped in front of him. "Your opponent is me," she said with a cool smile. "Little girl," the Flame Sovereign said evenly. "You have talent and strength, but you are no match for me." He raised his hand, and pure heavenly fire poured from his palm like flowing water, spreading across the ground to form a sea of flames beneath his feet. "You won't know until we fight," Shangguan said coldly. Her celestial flames surged once more, colliding head-on with his divine fire. In the blink of an eye, their figures became two streaks of blazing light, clashing again and again across the sky. This level of battle would not be decided quickly. Su Zimo turned his gaze toward Immortal Prince. "Where is Blade Tyrant?" he asked. "What business do you have with Brother Blade?" Immortal Prince replied cautiously. He knew Su Zimo was a Saint Sovereign, and that title alone commanded a certain respect, even from him. "Brother Blade Tyrant?" Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "So, it really was you who hit him?" Nonsense. Immortal Prince's expression changed slightly as he snapped. I may be on good terms with Brother Blade Tyrant, but I haven't seen him these past few days. I suspect he's been framed or hunted by villains. Blade Tyrant has repeatedly sent men to kill me, Suzimo said calmly. I'm here now to settle that score. Are you going to block my path? Or are you planning to die in his place? How dare you act so wildly in my prince's manor? Immortal Prince shouted. If you have grievances, take them to the Chaos Fire God realm. This is not a place where you can do as you please. I'm being presumptuous? Suzimo replied lightly. Even if I am, what the hell are you going to do? He lifted his right hand, and an overwhelming force descended from the heavens. Immortal Prince looked up, only to feel a crushing weight fall upon him, as if the power of heaven and earth itself was pressing down. It felt like an enormous mountain was collapsing on his shoulders. As the master of the prince's manor, Immortal Prince was not weak. He had already reached the life-death stage of the Grand Emperor realm. But when Suzimo's power fell upon him, his expression turned ashen. This was a power he could not resist. A series of dull cracking sounds echoed from within his body. Bones shattered one after another until he collapsed to the ground like a pile of broken flesh. You're vicious, Immortal Prince spat through gritted teeth. Speak, Suzimo said coldly. Where is Blade Tyrant? I don't know, Immortal Prince growled. If you have the guts, kill me. I'll never betray my brother. He was betting that Suzimo wouldn't dare. After all, killing him would mean declaring total war with the prince's manor, a feud that could never be undone. Even now, despite the battle raging, there was still room for negotiation. If the Chaos Fire God realm intervened, the matter might still be smoothed over. But if Suzimo killed him, there would be no going back. Suzimo saw through Immortal Prince's thinking and said, I'm curious. What benefit did Blade Tyrant give you that makes you so eager to protect him? I've never even met this Blade Tyrant, Immortal Prince insisted stubbornly. He would never admit anything now. To do so would make him guilty by his own words. He knew the truth but would rather die than speak it. Since you refuse to talk, Suzimo said indifferently, then I'll simply break into your manor and search for him myself. He raised his hand, and Shadow Tyrant descended. Its terrifying edge distorted the air itself, and the roar of power filled the skies. Immortal Prince's mind went blank. He's really going to kill me. Even as the blade fell, Immortal Prince could hardly believe it. His face turned pale as the edge drew near. Just then, a sharp voice rang out. Stay your hand. Someone stepped through the air, holding a blazing red decree. The moment those from the Chaos Fire God realm saw it, they froze. It was a sacred edict from the Fire Ancestor. Such an edict was equivalent to the Fire Ancestor's personal appearance. None in the entire Chaos Fire God realm dared disobey. Except Suzimo. Even when he saw the decree, his blade did not stop. Suzimo, do not act rashly, the messenger cried. He waved his hand, and a torrent of spatial fire surged through the void, wrapping around Immortal Prince and instantly teleporting him away. When Immortal Prince reappeared, he was already standing beside the messenger in midair. Suzimo looked up at the two of them without emotion. Do you even know what you're doing? The messenger demanded. Do you know what you're doing? Suzimo countered. The Fire Ancestor's decree, receive it, the messenger said curtly, unwilling to argue further. The Fire Ancestor's decree has nothing to do with me, Suzimo replied flatly. I'm not under the rule of your Chaos Fire God realm. You stand within the Chaos Fire God realm now, the messenger said. You've been chosen to represent the Chaos Fire God realm at the Ancestral Lands. Naturally, you are under our authority. Enough, Suzimo waved dismissively. Spare me the talk. Just read the decree. The messenger snorted coldly and solemnly unrolled the scroll. The fiery red parchment burned with light, dyeing the heavens crimson. The Fire Ancestor decrees. Let today's conflict end here. Both sides are to cease hostilities. The prince's manor must act with caution, and young Master Su must know when to advance and when to withdraw. Thus is the decree. When the messenger finished, Bien Wenzhou asked, "And what about the matter of Blade Tyrant? Did you not hear the fire ancestor's words?" The messenger said arrogantly, "The matter ends here." "You've finished reading?" Su Zimo asked calmly. "Yes," the messenger replied. "Then get lost," Su Zimo said, waving his hand. "Go back and tell your fire ancestor the last time he shielded Blade Tyrant, I let it go. But if he blocks my path again, I won't hesitate to destroy the Chaos Fire God realm itself." "You!" The messenger was left speechless, his face turning red. "Remember your words," he said stiffly, before flying off to report. As the messenger left, Immortal Prince's expression grew anxious. "Where are the sacred flame trinity of your manor?" Su Zimo asked coldly. "Are they your final trump card? Summon them. I'd like to see what they're made of." Immortal Prince said nothing. The sacred flame trinity were beings of such exalted status that even he could not command them. To put it plainly, even if the entire manor were destroyed, they might not deign to intervene. When Immortal Prince remained silent, Su Zimo simply shook his head. "In that case," he said, "you can die." He raised his right hand, and an immense force surged forth. No matter how hard Immortal Prince struggled, it was useless. Before a saint sovereign, all other power was meaningless. "Don't be arrogant," one of the elders of the prince's manor shouted. "We've already summoned the ancestor. When he emerges, it will be your doom." "Then I'll wait for him right here," Su Zimo said lightly. He had already noticed that the prince's manor didn't have many true experts. Forget saint sovereigns, there weren't even many grand emperors. He couldn't understand where they found the courage to oppose him. In truth, the prince's manor's strength was not great, but its status was unparalleled. Throughout the Chaos Fire God realm, few dared provoke them. That illusion of untouchable authority had lasted for generations, but in truth, only their ancestors' lingering prestige kept them standing. Without hesitation, Su Zimo reached out and seized Immortal Prince in his grasp. Despite Immortal Prince's desperate struggle, Su Zimo twisted his wrist, and the man's neck snapped with a sharp crack. Seeing this, both the Hollow Cave Elders and the Flame Sovereign turned deathly pale. "You killed him?" the Flame Sovereign said in disbelief. "What's the rush?" Su Zimo replied coldly. "You're next." "Kill!" the Flame Sovereign roared, his face twisted with fury. His gaze was like a sword as he charged straight at Su Zimo. His aura surged like a tempest. A sea of flames burned wildly across his body. He set himself ablaze, sacrificing his own essence blood to attack Su Zimo. Torrents of celestial fire surged endlessly around him. "An ant will always be an ant," Su Zimo said calmly. "Even if you burn your blood, you're only a slightly bigger ant." As the Flame Sovereign rushed toward him, Su Zimo raised his right hand and struck downward. The entire void shook violently with thunderous bangs. The Flame Sovereign's body was crushed into the ground, the flames around him gradually extinguishing until he lay there barely alive. Su Zimo then turned his gaze toward the two Hollow Cave Elders. By now, all the elders of the prince's manor had fled back inside. The Hollow Cave pair didn't dare to act rashly. They exchanged a glance and came to the same conclusion. Run. Without hesitation, they each fled in a different direction. But how could Su Zimo possibly let them escape? He swept his blade, and streams of killing intent roared through the air. When the intent of the shadow blade descended, two heads fell to the ground, their eyes still open in death. A moment later, the headless bodies followed. Su Zimo took a deep breath, and the traceless compass behind him spun slowly as he began walking toward the prince's manor. This time, no one dared to stop him. He led his companions forward, unhurriedly, one step at a time. Today, no matter where Blade Tyrant was hiding, Su Zimo was determined to find him. Meanwhile, not far away in the Chaos Fire God realm, the messenger returned, brimming with indignation, the decree still in his hands. He went directly to see the Fire Ancestor and recounted Su Zimo's defiance, embellishing his story along the way. At the end, he added bitterly, Lord, this is a challenge to your authority. I believe we should immediately send troops to suppress him. The fire ancestor stood in his courtyard, surrounded by blossoms of firefeather flowers just beginning to bloom. Each petal glowed crimson, each blossom like a flickering flame. From afar, it looked as though the sea of flowers had turned into a blazing ocean of fire. The fire ancestor, the master of the chaos fire god realm himself, stood before this fiery garden, inhaling deeply, lost for a moment in the fragrance. Lord, I think the messenger began again, thinking his words had not been heard. But the fire ancestor interrupted him. I heard you. You may leave now. He waved a hand dismissively. The messenger froze, stunned that the fiery wrath he'd expected never came. This was the first time in thousands of years that anyone had dared to reject the fire ancestor's decree, yet he showed no anger at all. My lord, the messenger persisted, still kneeling. If we don't suppress the Suzimo today, what will become of the Chaos Fire God realm's prestige? Suppress him? Will you be the one to do it? The fire ancestor asked mildly. The messenger fell silent instantly. The sacred flame trinity haven't made a move yet. Why are you in such a rush? The fire ancestor asked calmly. His meaning was clear. If the masters of that family themselves weren't anxious, why should he be? But the messenger began again, clearly unwilling to let go after recalling Suzimo's insolent words. Enough. Leave. The fire ancestor waved his hand again. It was clear the matter ended there. The messenger could only bow helplessly and withdraw from the courtyard. The fire ancestor said nothing more. He gazed quietly toward the distant heavens, in the direction of the prince's manor. The Chaos Fire God realm has been stagnant for millennia, he murmured to himself. It's about time for some waves to rise. No sooner had he spoken than a figure appeared from the void beside him. The man was wrapped head to toe in layers of white bandages, his sudden arrival abrupt and silent. But the fire ancestor showed no surprise. What is it? He asked. Why didn't you help the prince's manor? The bandaged man demanded. I did help, the fire ancestor replied lightly. I issued a decree. It's not my fault the man refused to obey. That's hardly helping, the bandaged man said coldly. You should have sent someone to capture him. The fire ancestor merely smiled without answering, his gaze still fixed on the fiery blossoms before him. You want the prince's manor destroyed, the bandaged man said sharply as realization dawned. I never said that, the fire ancestor replied with a faint smile, shaking his head. Why? The bandaged man pressed. I want to know why. The prince's manor belongs to the sacred flame trinity. What are you planning? The prince's manor's existence has always been symbolic, the fire ancestor said casually. If they'd kept to their place, all would have been well. I would have continued to honor them as always. He shook his head slightly. But the descendants of the Trinity have grown increasingly foolish. They actually believe they can stand above the Chaos Fire God realm. Such a thing is impossible. So if that man destroys the prince's manor, it merely serves your purpose, the bandaged man said flatly. You could say that, the fire ancestor replied with a faint chuckle. The prince's manor brought this upon themselves. But that man is an unpredictable factor, the bandaged man warned. He doesn't recognize the Chaos Fire God realm's authority either. Why should I control him? The fire ancestor asked. His destiny isn't bound to the Chaos Fire God realm. He'll leave eventually. He poses no threat to us. You think he alone can annihilate the prince's manor? The bandaged man scoffed. The Trinity aren't dead yet. They should be. The fire ancestor murmured softly and said no more. The prince's manor was vast, occupying the most prosperous lands of the region. Artificial mountains, towers, and flowing streams adorned the estate. Grand buildings rose in every direction, some like soaring dragons, others like crouching tigers. Exotic flowers and rare herbs lined the paths. But when Suzimo and his group entered, the entire prince's manor was on high alert. Immortal Prince was dead, and many were desperately trying to summon their ancestral patriarchs. Without the ancestors' presence, they were like headless ants in chaos. Above Su Zimo's head, the traceless compass spun continuously. "Blade Tyrant hasn't moved?" he muttered, puzzled. He had expected the man to flee or at least change locations. But the compass's readings indicated that Blade Tyrant had remained in the same spot. "Let's go take a look," Su Zimo said. Under his lead, the group advanced steadily deeper into the estate. After passing through several grand halls, they finally stopped before a secluded area thick with vegetation, the forbidden ground of the prince's manor. The moment they arrived, the remaining members of the prince's manor could no longer stay still. They formed a defensive line before the forbidden grounds, refusing to let Su Zimo pass. "This is the resting place of the sacred flame trinity," one of the elders said solemnly. "You may not enter." Su Zimo ignored him, his eyes narrowing slightly. According to the compass, Blade Tyrant was hiding inside this forbidden area. That made no sense. How could an outsider like Blade Tyrant gain entry to such a sacred place? Even the foolish prince's manor wouldn't allow that. After a brief silence, Su Zimo said quietly, "Let's go in." "You can't go in." The members of the prince's manor stood in front of the gate. Though fear was written across their faces, they still mustered the courage to block the way. "This is a forbidden ground. You cannot enter." Su Zimo had no patience for their nonsense. A surge of spirit energy erupted from his palm, and a colossal handprint descended from the heavens, shattering the air itself. The crushing wind howled through the place as everyone was forced to their knees under its pressure. Some of them trembled uncontrollably, collapsing to the ground in terror. "You're nothing but ants, yet your courage is commendable," Su Zimo said. "I'll spare your lives." Shangguan Xian and the others followed closely behind him as they all walked toward the forbidden ground. The massive gate before them was tightly shut, flanked by overgrown weeds that had clearly been left untended for years. The wild grass grew waist-high, sprawling everywhere without restraint. Su Zimo glanced at the gate, then slowly lifted his right leg. With a single thunderous boom, the door burst apart into fragments, exploding into clouds of dust. A deep fissure split the ground before them, bottomless, like a scar carved by divine wrath. Such was the power of a single kick. But Su Zimo still seemed unsatisfied. The gate's defenses were formidable, yet it hadn't been enough. He lifted his gaze. Inside the forbidden ground, the scenery wasn't much different from the outside, wild grass everywhere, and several ancient pine and cypress trees ahead. Their branches were thick and lush, each trunk so wide that it would take several men to encircle one. They looked ancient, as though they had stood there for countless generations. And beneath those towering trees stood 3 stone monuments, or rather 3 tombstones. This was the forbidden place that not even the prince's manor's own people dared to enter. Even the head of the family, Immortal Prince, had never been allowed beyond this point. It was said to be the resting place of the sacred flame trinity. No one was permitted to disturb them without their summons. That was the rule established when the prince's manor was founded, when the sacred flame trinity had withdrawn from the world. But now, as Su Zimo stepped inside, those who had been suppressed outside found themselves freed. Terrified for the sanctity of their ancestral ground, they rushed in after him. Yet the moment they saw what lay within, their faces turned pale. This wasn't a resting place. It was a burial ground. "The sacred flame trinity are dead?" one of them whispered, his voice trembling at the thought. "If they're dead, then the prince's manor is truly finished. Who else could stand against this man? That's impossible. The sacred flame trinity can't have died so easily. And why haven't we received any news of it?" Some refused to believe it. Others were overcome with grief and despair. The death of the sacred flame trinity was a crushing blow. Without them, the prince's manor no longer had any supreme power to rely on. More than that, the elder's prestige was what upheld the manor's exalted status. With them gone, that status would vanish as well. No one would respect the prince's manner anymore. Given their current situation, it was only a matter of time before they declined completely. Or perhaps, someone glanced at Su Zimo. They might not even have the chance to decline, he could wipe them out here and now. Hurry to the Chaos Fire God realm. Ask the Fire Ancestor to intervene, someone shouted. Several members immediately fled toward the Chaos Fire God realm in desperation. Su Zimo ignored them. The traceless compass signal for Blade Tyrant had vanished the moment he entered this place. That meant Blade Tyrant was here, hidden somewhere inside. Yet, as he scanned his surroundings, there was nothing out of the ordinary in the forbidden ground. Aside from the 3 tombs, there was nothing else of note. Could the compass be wrong? Bian Wenzhou asked cautiously. Impossible. Su Zimo shook his head. The traceless compass did not make such elementary mistakes. Then, there's only one explanation, he said, his eyes narrowing. The inner world. He's hiding inside the inner world. It was like 2 realms existing in the same space, overlapping but belonging to different dimensions. Just like Su Zimo's own God world. That world existed with him as its core. Wherever he was, it would also be. The reason the God world and the 9 heavens did not conflict was because they existed in separate dimensions. If Su Zimo were to project the God world into the 9 heavens plane, only one outcome would occur. The strong devour the weak. The greater world would consume the lesser one to strengthen itself. That was the eternal law of the universe. Within the same dimension, only one world could exist. Su Zimo fell silent, closing his eyes as he began to sense the subtleties of the forbidden ground. He examined every inch of it, not missing a single corner. The others stood quietly, not daring to disturb him. After a long while, Su Zimo slowly opened his eyes and exhaled deeply. Found it. Master Su, what should we do next? Bian Wenzhou asked. Open the graves, Su Zimo said with a cold smile. Dig up the tombs. Before him stood 3 mounds of earth, each marked by a black, wordless stele. Bian Wenzhou hesitated for only a moment before understanding that Su Zimo must have his reasons. He raised his right hand, summoning a black longsword. A dark crow sigil was etched into its hilt. Powerful spirit energy radiated from him as he swung the blade. A streak of black sword intent burst forth, taking the form of a giant shadow crow that dove straight toward the graves. In Bian Wenzhou's mind, this strike should have been more than enough to blast open the tombs, leaving behind a deep crater. But when the attack landed, with a loud clang, sparks exploded, and the tomb remained untouched. What? Bian Wenzhou stared in disbelief. He inspected the grave carefully. There was no spirit energy, no formation. It seemed utterly ordinary. Try again, Su Zimo said, smiling faintly. Bian Wenzhou nodded and focused. This time he poured all his strength into it. Spirit energy churned around him as his black sword trembled violently, surging with raw battle intent. Return to silence. Slash. A black crescent of sword energy erupted forth. This was a full-force strike, his strongest attack. Yet the grave's hardness defied all logic. The sword energy rebounded once again. Master Su, what's going on? Bian Wenzhou asked, bewildered. It's as if something keeps blocking my power. It's a spatial barrier, Su Zimo replied. A wall separating one dimension from another. I see, Bian Wenzhou said, realization dawning. You mean beneath these tombs lies another world. The sacred flame trinity are hiding inside it. Not only the sacred flame trinity, Su Zimo said quietly. Blade Tyrant as well. Then his gaze darkened. But it seems Blade Tyrant's true identity is far more complicated than just the Lord of Stone Flame City. That's right, Su Zimo explained. The reason your attack couldn't reach them is because your strength isn't great enough to tear through the spatial barrier. My apologies. I'm too weak, Bian Wenzhou said helplessly. Su Zimo turned to Shangguanxian. Do you want to give it a try? This dimensional space isn't the same as ordinary space, Shangguanxian said seriously. It won't be so easy to break through. She had been studying the area carefully for some time. Now her tone was solemn. I'd like to try, but I'm not sure if my power will be enough. Your celestial spirit physique should be sufficient, Su Zimo said. Then he asked, does anyone here know more about Blade Tyrant? Bian Wenzhou asked, frowning in thought. I've met Blade Tyrant a few times, but he's a deep and calculating man. I don't know much about him. The Chaos Fire God realm should, though. After all, it was they who appointed him as the city lord. The Chaos Fire God realm cannot be trusted, Su Zimo said, shaking his head. Given Blade Tyrant's status, he should be considered an outsider to the prince's manor. Yet the prince's manor had risked everything to protect him, even allowing him to hide in the dimensional world of the Sacred Flame Trinity to escape danger. That was far from normal. Then let's open this dimensional space, Bian Wenzhou suggested. Once we see him, we can ask him directly. There's no point in guessing. Su Zimo nodded slightly. He didn't act himself, because he wasn't familiar with the world beneath them. If he attacked recklessly, there was a chance the enemy could use it as an opportunity to escape. If that happened, he'd have to waste time hunting them down again. So he let Shangguan Xian make the move instead. Even though Su Zimo was a Saint Sovereign, the Sacred Flame Trinity were said to be figures from the era of the Chaos Fire progenitor, most likely Saint Sovereigns as well. One Saint Sovereign against 3 Saint Sovereigns. No matter how he looked at it, the odds were against him. The Sacred Flame Trinity probably wouldn't run. Since Bian Wenzhou had already failed, Shangguan Xian was much more cautious this time. Her celestial spirit physique awakened, pure and flawless, as if a divine being had descended to the mortal realm. Her long black hair cascaded down her back, and celestial fire ignited across her body. She didn't use any weapon. Instead, she began forming seals with both hands. The hand seals were complex and difficult to comprehend, and the process took considerable time. Finally, when the last seal was completed, a bolt of thunderfire descended from the heavens. It was the fusion of lightning and flame. Lightning was, in truth, an evolution beyond flame. Fire pushed to its most violent limit until it transcended into thunder. The essence of fire was destruction through burning. No matter how fierce its power, its purpose was always to consume. It could be the inferno that scorched heaven and sea, or the simple flame used by mortals to cook their meals. Both were bound by that same principle of burning. But thunder was born only when fire grew so violent that it broke its own boundaries. This was that thunder fire, fierce and magnificent. Shangguan Xian gathered countless celestial flames to condense this one bolt. Though its area of effect wasn't large, its power was terrifying, focused to a single devastating point. With a resounding boom, thunder roared, space shattered, and arcs of violet lightning coiled and exploded endlessly. Finally, it seemed that the tomb sensed something. The ground beneath them began to tremble violently. Boy! A cold, ancient voice rose from deep underground, its tone grim and heavy. If you had left quietly just now, I might have spared your life. But it's a pity you chose death and forced me to appear. You've walked into hell with your own feet. Hearing this voice, Bian Wenzhou and the others turned pale. They could already guess what was coming. Meanwhile, the prince's manor's disciples were overjoyed. It's the ancestor. The ancestor lives. There's no mistake. As long as the ancestor still stands, nothing else matters. Cries of relief and reverence echoed among them. All eyes turned toward the trembling earth. The crack in the ground widened, stretching deeper and deeper until finally, a coffin rose slowly from the darkness. As it floated upward, Su Zimo didn't even glance at it. His gaze remained fixed on the fissure below. But to his disappointment, the crack began closing again until it was sealed shut. With a quiet sigh, he shifted his focus to the coffin. The lid creaked open, and from within emerged an old man, white-haired but youthful-faced. It was hard to believe that someone so seemingly young had sealed himself inside a coffin. It's Life-Death Sovereign, one of the Sacred Flame Trinity, someone shouted in recognition. I was lucky enough to meet him once long ago. said an elderly member of the prince's manor in confusion. But why does he look younger than before? Indeed, the old man's face looked strangely youthful. He raised his head toward Su Zimo, his expression twisted and fierce. Though corpse spots had already appeared on his skin, he still emanated a strange vitality. Su Zimo studied him closely and immediately noticed something was wrong. Inside the man's body, two powerful forces were clashing. One was deathly energy, the other life force, and that life force felt familiar. Su Zimo thought for a moment, and then he remembered. The blue men, the same life energy he had once sensed from the blue man he obtained before. Realization dawned. The sacred flame trinity had made the same choice as that old man who once possessed the blue man. They had tried to use the blue men to cultivate, to prolong their lives. Understanding this, Su Zimo looked back at the elder before him. Life-Death Sovereign's eyes burned with fierce light. He didn't look like a man close to death at all. "Boy," he said coldly, "how do you want to die?" "What a pity," Su Zimo replied with a faint smile. "A pity?" Life-Death Sovereign sneered. "For what?" "That it's only you, a small fish," Su Zimo said. "You can't even stir my interest. Where are the other two of your sacred flame trinity?" He wanted to take them all at once. And Blade Tyrant? Why doesn't he dare show his face? "Don't you think you're asking a bit too many questions?" Life-Death Sovereign said mockingly. "I have no obligation to answer you." He let out a cold laugh. "Let's put talk aside. If you can survive a single exchange with me, then you'll have the right to speak." As he waved his hand, shadows of ghosts emerged behind him. The deathly energy within him surged violently, forming the image of a hellish Azura that roared and lunged toward Su Zimo. "For a fellow Saint Sovereign, aren't you underestimating me?" Su Zimo said calmly, shaking his head. His gaze sharpened like a blade. A colossal saber shadow descended from the heavens, nailing the Azura to the ground with a thunderous crash. The saber's edge gleamed with blinding light, carrying the resonance of the great Tao itself. Life-Death Sovereign didn't look surprised. It seemed as though he had expected this. He lifted his hand, and a wisp of blue spirit energy fell upon the pinned Azura. At once, the demonic figure stirred again. Its wounds vanished, and with a feral snarl, it charged once more toward Su Zimo. Seeing this scene, Su Zimo's gaze narrowed slightly. He could almost confirm that the other side also possessed a blue man and had been studying the secrets within it. He reached out with his right hand, and a surge of immense power erupted. The Azura could no longer control its body and was directly seized in Su Zimo's palm. Bit by bit, Su Zimo began absorbing the power within it. Seeing this, Life-Death Sovereign frowned deeply. "Boy, what did you do? What do you think?" Su Zimo replied calmly. "Humph. I'll capture you first and ask later." Life-Death Sovereign snorted coldly. Boundless spirit energy erupted around him, and at his fingertips, a flickering flame danced, sometimes bright, sometimes dim. This flame seemed eternal, burning with undying radiance and ancient power. "This is the sacred flame. Life-Death Sovereign's sacred flame." Someone from the watching crowd cried out. "In our Chaos Fire God realm, the sacred flame's power is second only to that of the fire ancestor himself. This Su Zimo is finished. He's too arrogant for relying on his Saint Sovereign realm. It's time someone taught him a lesson. Sacred Flame Prison." Life-Death Sovereign waved his hand. The flame at his fingertips soared into the void, spreading outward. He didn't intend to kill Su Zimo outright. He knew Su Zimo held secrets he wanted. The flames gathered in the air, forming a massive cage of fire that descended from the heavens. Everything in its path was imprisoned, locking Su Zimo completely within. Flames raged all around, roaring like beasts. "Seal!" Life-Death Sovereign shouted as he waved his hand. The prison began to shrink continuously, as though it intended to capture Su Zimo alive. Su Zimo snorted coldly. The weapon in his hand, Shadow Tyrant, shattered the fiery prison in an instant and surged toward Life-Death Sovereign. The blade radiated endless energy, and under Su Zimo's control, it transformed into a dragon of fire. Its overwhelming might surged into the heavens. Slash! He roared. The fire dragon charged forward, swallowing Life-Death Sovereign whole. The next moment, two explosions echoed through the sky. One came from the dragon being torn apart. Life-Death Sovereign, shrouded in sacred flame and wreathed in divine might, strode forth from the flames like a blazing rainbow. The other came from Su Zimo, who had opened the three gates, stepping into the void with unmatched grandeur. The two stood opposite each other in midair. At this point, Su Zimo was in the first stage of the Saint Sovereign, Supreme Giant. Life-Death Sovereign, however, stood higher, the second stage, Chaos Primordial. Just a newly ascended Saint Sovereign, yet already so arrogant. Life-Death Sovereign said coldly, "Your fall is only a matter of time. Young people shouldn't be so conceited. If the young aren't bold, then what's the point of being young?" Su Zimo sneered. "Old thing, spare me your lectures. You're already halfway to the grave. Aren't you afraid I'll finish the job and break your old bones myself?" "Just you." Life-Death Sovereign laughed grimly. "When we established the Chaos Fire God Realm alongside the Chaos Fire Progenitor, you probably hadn't even been born. You want to talk about the past?" Su Zimo shook his head and chuckled. "When I stood unrivaled across the 9 heavens, you wouldn't even have been worthy to crawl as an ant." "Enough talk, answer me this. Have you seen the myriad streams?" Life-Death Sovereign asked. This was the question haunting him. Just moments ago, Su Zimo had absorbed the strange energy from the Infernal Azura, an energy Life-Death Sovereign knew all too well. The myriad streams? Could he mean the Blue Man? Su Zimo thought to himself. He wasn't entirely sure, but the description fit perfectly. "I don't know what you're talking about," Su Zimo said, shaking his head. "No matter. Once I capture you, I'll make you talk." Life-Death Sovereign replied coldly. He rose into the air. Sacred flame surged outward, and the entire sky was consumed by a boundless sea of fire. "Kill!" he shouted. From within the fire sea, countless beings of living flame condensed, an army of fire men that charged toward Su Zimo like a blazing tide. "Return to one," Su Zimo whispered, gripping Shadow Tyrant. The weapon roared, its blade energy howling through the void. But this time, alongside its destructive force, a strange and deeper power surged, the power of origin. Having once witnessed Xiaoenshan use this power, Su Zimo now grasped its essence. He wielded the strength of an entire world. What he could return to origin was beyond imagination. With a single slash, the blade lived up to its name, Return to One. All things reverted to their original state. No matter how chaotic or countless, all returned to their beginning. The slash tore through the air, freezing the army of fire men in place. Their forms began to shift and dissolve, flames retreating, turning into drops of water. One drop of water could form a single fireman. It was an eerily familiar sight. The same thing had happened before. The water beasts formed from the Blue Man's blood essence. These firemen were no different. Su Zimo immediately grew more vigilant. As all the firemen transformed into water droplets, he sensed a strange fluctuation within himself. The Blue Man inside his body began to stir violently. A wave of craving came from it, a deep hunger, a longing to devour those droplets. Su Zimo waved his hand, but before he could act, the Blue Man within him unleashed a tremendous devouring power. All of the droplets began to drift toward Su Zimo uncontrollably. "You!" Life-Death Sovereign's face twisted in shock. Those droplets had taken him over 10 years to cultivate. Each one was truly immortal. Even if the fire men were destroyed, the water droplets would endlessly regenerate. But now, as they were devoured, his link to them was severed. He felt panic rising within him. "This boy! Something's wrong with him," Life-Death Sovereign muttered under his breath. Behind Su Zimo, the colossal titan roared to life. "If you have any real tricks left, use them now," Su Zimo said with a smile. "Otherwise, I'll just send you to the afterlife." The titan strode forward, its steps shaking the ground, fissures spreading everywhere. With a thunderous boom, its fist came down, cracking the air itself. Life-Death Sovereign crossed his arms before his chest, blocking the blow, but the sheer force sent him hurtling backward. This is impossible, he gasped. How could a mere newly ascended Saint Sovereign possess such strength? Then his eyes widened as he seemed to realize something. You've fused the life-death soul into yourself, haven't you? Su Zimo sneered. Not just one. The ghost-face flower had fused both life-death soul within him. Was it any wonder he was so powerful? A foolish act, Life-Death Sovereign said coldly. Even if it makes you strong, once you die, there will be no resurrection for you. You'd better worry about yourself first, Su Zimo replied with a smirk. Boy, I admit I can't defeat you, Life-Death Sovereign said grimly. But we, the Sacred Flame Trinity, never act alone. He quickly formed a series of hand seals, sending streaks of light deep into the earth. The ground, which had just closed, began to split open once more. 2 more coffins rose slowly from the depths. The Sacred Flame Trinity have all gathered, someone said gravely, staring at the 2 coffins that had just risen again. Among the Sacred Flame Trinity, the second was Life-Death Sovereign. As for the eldest, the people of the Chaos Fire God realm called him Imperial Throne Sovereign. The third was Heaven Seas Sovereign. Their real names had long been forgotten. That era was too ancient, its people and memories scattered into the dust of time. The 2 coffins exuded a suffocating aura of power. The forbidden grounds grew so hot that the very air shimmered. Countless members of the prince's manor knelt upon the ground, trembling and speechless. With all 3 elders emerging at once, reverence was the only thing left to show. 3 surges of terrifying power erupted skyward, their auras blazing like an inferno. Su Zimo looked up. With 2 loud bangs, the coffin lids slowly opened. Life-Death, you couldn't even handle one brat? An aged voice came from within. 2 figures rose from their coffins, one dressed in a purple dragon robe, the other in a coarse hemp robe, fiery light blazing in his eyes. This boy is strange, Life-Death Sovereign said grimly. He seems to know about that matter. My power of the myriad streams was devoured by him. Then the 3 of us will strike together, Imperial Throne Sovereign ordered calmly. We'll subdue him first and question him later. Flames erupted from all 3 elders at once. The void itself boiled, and torrents of fire pierced the heavens. Behind them, their true fates appeared. Their true fates were astonishingly identical, each a golden flame, but the flames took on different forms. One became a sword, another a blade, and the last a bow. Heaven Seas Sovereign held a fiery bow, channeling energy through his true fate. His spirit energy gathered as arrows, the string drawn tight. With a thunderous bang, an arrow shot forth like a meteor, vanishing into the void as it hurtled toward Su Zimo. The arrow was immensely powerful, its sonic booms crackling through the air. Even the void along its path was set ablaze. Slash! Su Zimo shouted, raising Shadow Tyrant. The towering power of his blade shook the heavens. The knifes will clashed violently with the arrow's point, waves of destructive energy spreading in all directions. Retreat from the forbidden grounds, someone shouted. A battle between Saint Sovereigns could flatten the entire area for millions of miles. Anyone who stayed would be annihilated, body and soul alike. Go, all of you, Su Zimo said to Bien Wenzhou and the others. Among them, only Shangguanxian and Bien Wenzhou could possibly endure the aftershocks. The young disciples of the celestial mortal Holy Lands would never survive. Then, the arrow and blade exploded simultaneously. At the midpoint between Su Zimo and Heaven Seas Sovereign, the ground split open into a 1,000-meter deep trench. Both men stepped back slightly. Su Zimo's expression remained calm, but Heaven Seas Sovereign's face turned pale. He nearly spat blood. So strong, Heaven Seas Sovereign muttered, eyes narrowing. Blade Sword Purgatory, Imperial Throne Sovereign and Life-Death Sovereign roared together. Countless blades and swords intertwined, forming an endless cage of steel and fire. Like a hellish prison, it descended toward Su Zimo. Their attack was lightning fast. Within a heartbeat, the deadly cage was upon him, leaving no room to react. Heaven Unity 3 Gates. Gate of Eternity. Su Zimo called out softly. For a brief instant, he became untouchable. Blades and swords struck his body without leaving so much as a mark. His eyes narrowed slightly, power swirling within him. Then boom! His twin fists struck the abdomens of both Imperial Throne Sovereign and Life-Death Sovereign. Blood sprayed across the sky as their bodies were hurled backward. Damn it! Life-Death Sovereign snarled. This brat's strength doesn't match his realm at all. Use that move, Imperial Throne Sovereign said coldly, eyes deep and calculating. The three exchanged glances and nodded in unison. A dazzling surge of energy erupted around them. Each raised a hand, gathering an unimaginable flame. 3 golden fires appeared in their palms, burning fiercely. The flames we each wield are but ordinary golden flames, Imperial Throne Sovereign said proudly. But if we merge them, they will become the true primal chaos sacred flame. He looked down on Su Zimo and added, Back then, the fire ancestor divided his flame into 3 and passed them to us. To die under the primal chaos sacred flame is an honor. In my eyes, all flames are ants, Su Zimo said with a faint smile. Only the flame of Zhurong is supreme. A brilliant blaze unfurled in his palm. The flame of Zhurong. Wherever it appeared, it became the brightest and most radiant flame of all. Inside the Chaos Fire God realm, the fire ancestor stood before a projection in the void. Only the bandaged man was there with him. Remarkable, the bandaged man said in awe. To think he could force the sacred flame trinity into this state. If he ever ascends to Sage Monarch at his current strength, he would be invincible within the Saint Sovereign realm. I'm more interested in the flame he wields, the fire ancestor said, narrowing his eyes. What kind of fire is that? I have spent my entire life studying flames, of every kind under heaven, and yet I've never seen one like his. Could it come from another heaven? The bandaged man asked. Our Inferno Crucible heaven is the birthplace of all flames, the fire ancestor replied firmly, shaking his head. No other heaven could produce such a fire. If you ask me, it is an unknown flame, something beyond our records. Then tell me, the bandaged man asked, between his flame and the primal chaos sacred flame, which is stronger? We'll know soon enough, the fire ancestor said with a faint smile. You truly mean to let the prince's manor be destroyed? The bandaged man asked. They've been tainted by something they should never have touched, the fire ancestor said coldly. I won't allow my Chaos Fire God realm to repeat the downfall of the Departure Fire God realm. The bandaged man froze, realizing the fire ancestor knew far more than he had let on. So this Su Zimo, was he part of your plan? He asked in disbelief. Not exactly. His arrival was an accident, the fire ancestor replied, shaking his head. But I took advantage of it. That blade tyrant didn't disappoint my expectations. The bandaged man fell silent. He found the man before him terrifying. Everything seemed to fall within his calculations. Back in the forbidden grounds of the prince's manor, when the 3 golden flames merged, the primal chaos sacred flame truly manifested. Before everyone's eyes, the flame took the form of a living beast. Flame gave birth to spirit. Spirit gave birth to form. That was the mark of a true and powerful fire. Even Su Zimo's flame of Zhurong could take form. The ancient god flame lotus he once summoned was proof of that. Now, the sacred flame had transformed into a monstrous creature resembling the mythical Qiongqi. Its gaze was fierce, its growl thunderous as it leapt high into the air, lunging at Su Zimo. At the same time, the flame of Zhurong in Su Zimo's hand began to transform, condensing into the form of a majestic phoenix. The phoenix born of the flame of Zhurong faced the Qiongqi born of the primal chaos sacred flame from afar. The 2 fiery beasts roared at each other endlessly. They didn't seem like conjured illusions but living creatures, true beasts of fire and fury. The phoenix cried sharply, its enormous body soaring through the heavens. The Chonchi bellowed in return, its long fangs gleaming as its eyes locked coldly onto the phoenix, ready to leap at any moment and strike it down. "Kill!" came the command from the sacred flame trinity. The Chonchi sprang upward with a mighty bound, leaping higher even than the phoenix in flight. With a deafening roar, it crashed down onto the phoenix's back, its claws tearing and biting relentlessly, as though intent on ripping the phoenix to shreds. The Chonchi was savage beyond measure. In the blink of an eye, it had already forced the phoenix from the sky, tearing at its flesh no matter how it struggled. "I thought it would be stronger than this," Life-Death Sovereign snorted. All thunder, no rain. But Su Zimo wasn't worried. He merely watched, calm and unmoved by the elder's taunt. When the Chonchi finally killed the phoenix, it turned its ferocious gaze toward Su Zimo, roaring as if to boast of its victory. "Easy there, little one," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. He waved a hand, and from the torn corpse of the phoenix came a low, resonant cry. The phoenix could be reborn from its own flames. That was, after all, its true nature. As it grew stronger, the fire around it burned even more fiercely. The phoenix let out a piercing cry. This time, it didn't wait for the Chonchi to retreat. Its sharp talons seized the beast and dragged it into the sky. Streams of flame poured forth, engulfing the Chonchi in a sea of fire. The Chonchi's screams echoed through the void. "The phoenix can be reborn from its flames," Su Zimo said with a smile. "I wonder if your Chonchi can do the same." "Don't get cocky, boy," one of the sacred flame trinity growled coldly. The three of them began forming hand seals at once. Markings shaped like demonic beasts appeared in their palms, pulsing with power. With a unified shout, they hurled a dozen beast seals into the air. The Chonchi, already on the verge of death, suddenly let out a desperate roar as it sensed the seals approaching. When the seals merged into its body, its aura surged violently. The power inside it grew so rapidly that it seemed ready to explode, its body unable to contain the force. When it reached the limit, the three elders finally stopped. With another earth-shaking roar, the Chonchi broke free from the phoenix's claws. It leapt into the air, spewing its own torrent of fire. The massive phoenix was once again consumed by flames and perished beneath them. "It's useless," Su Zimo said, shaking his head. "Each death only makes it stronger." The phoenix was reborn once more. It dived from the sky, igniting the heavens and earth in crimson fire. This time, its power was overwhelming. It charged through everything like a storm, crashing head-on into the Chonchi. With a deafening boom, the two beasts perished together in a single cataclysmic explosion. But while the Chonchi's death was final, the phoenix rose again from the ashes, its sharp eyes now fixed on the sacred flame trinity. "What kind of flame is this? It's so domineering," Imperial Throne Sovereign said, his expression dark and wary. "Domineering is just the basic nature of the flame of Jerome," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "I haven't even begun to unleash its full power." His gaze drifted toward the three coffins beside them. "At least you're self-aware enough to have your coffins ready. Who they're prepared for isn't decided yet," Life-Death Sovereign sneered. "If you still have any tricks left," Su Zimo said, "go ahead and use them. 3 Saint Sovereigns, it's not much. You've grown old, past your prime, and your strength has faded. It's enough to kill you," Life-Death Sovereign snapped. "Should we use that move?" Heaven Seas Sovereign asked. His tone was dark, hesitant, filled with reluctance. Even Imperial Throne Sovereign fell silent, knowing well what that move would cost. "If the Prince's manor is destroyed today," Imperial Throne Sovereign said coldly, "then we 3 will bear the blame first. Since that's the case, we might as well go down fighting. At least we'll leave behind a spark for the manor to survive." With the Chaos Fire God Realm's protection, the Prince's manor could still rise again. Life-Death Sovereign nodded. "Chaos Fire God Realm," Heaven Seas Sovereign scoffed. "We've fought this long, yet not a shadow of them has appeared. They've abandoned us, left us to die. The Fire Ancestor knows something," Imperial Throne Sovereign said quietly, his gaze deep and unreadable. Having made up their minds, the three elders sat cross-legged on the ground. They began chanting under their breath, hands weaving rapidly through complex seals. A gray aura of death spread through the air. At that same moment, all those of royal blood in the manor, whether direct lineage or distant branch, felt something stirring deep within their souls. Across the royal grounds, people screamed in agony, collapsing to the floor, their faces twisted in pain, veins bulging and bodies flushed red as their blood boiled. The veins on their foreheads swelled grotesquely. Everyone nearby was horrified. What's happening? They were fine just a moment ago. Why are they like this? In moments, every person bearing royal blood lay dead, hundreds of them, motionless on the ground. The blood within their bodies had been burned away, transformed into dark flames. Those black flames then rose from their corpses, swirling upward into the sky. Countless deaths gave birth to countless flames, each one reeking of death itself. As the flames gathered, they flew toward the sacred flame trinity. In the void, the black fires began merging into one terrifying mass. A shadow of death spread over all. Someone swallowed hard as the flame drew near. They could feel their very life force being drained away. What is that? Someone gasped. Why do I feel like I'm dying just by standing here? Could it be? One person began, then stopped, eyes wide in horror. They've gone mad. The prince's manor has gone completely mad. What are the sacred flame trinity trying to do? It seems they've been driven to desperation. This must be their final move. Another whispered with a heavy sigh. Su Zimo didn't interfere. He only watched calmly, sensing the overwhelming aura of death gathering before him. But he wasn't afraid. For one who possessed the inheritance of Jumong, what was death, after all? Unless crushed by absolute power, like that of the old thief from before, death held no real meaning for him. Minor tricks like these were nothing. At last, when the flames of death fused into a single mass, a black sun rising into the sky, the sacred flame trinity of sacred flames slowly opened their eyes. Just like all the others, a lump of black fire emerged from within them, burning away the last traces of their bloodline. Having unleashed this move, even if Su Zimo chose not to kill them, the three would not live for long. At this point, they were no more than walking corpses, devoid of life, sustained only by the remnants of their will. To die under this technique, with so many of our clan joining you in the grave, you should take pride in that, Imperial Throne Sovereign said coldly. Pride? You think you're worthy of that? Su Zimo replied with a faint smile. Kill! Imperial Throne Sovereign roared. The three poured every last shred of their strength into it. The blazing black fire shot out like the hand of death itself, turning into a bolt of lightning that struck Su Zimo squarely. A deafening explosion echoed through the air. Su Zimo had no time to dodge. The flame seemed to possess a will of its own, burrowing directly into his mind. Seeing this, the sacred flame trinity finally seemed relieved. Su Zimo was as good as dead. They grinned, content to spend the last moments of their lives watching him perish before their eyes. Inside Su Zimo's body, his expression turned grave as he sensed what was happening. The fire, once inside his mind, began burning his flesh and soul together. His spirit energy became the fuel for the inferno. The more it burned, the stronger it grew. The aura of death closed in from all sides. Su Zimo could feel the crushing pressure, his consciousness fading, as though he could already see the ferry that carried souls to the netherworld. Only the dead could see that vessel before they were taken across. So this is what death feels like, Su Zimo murmured with a crooked smile. But the next instant, boundless life energy erupted from within him, radiance from the tree of life, and the divine vitality of the world tree he had inherited from Jumong. Both contained infinite, inexhaustible life force. Now, they surged forth to meet the deathly flame in direct opposition. From the outside, Su Zimo's state was terrifying. Half of him alive, half dead. Life and death stood face to face within him, locked in violent conflict. No matter how strong your life force is, it can't withstand this death seal. Life-death sovereign barked. The death energy within it carries the lives of our entire royal house. It's enough to kill you several times over. If you'd gathered the lives of everyone in the entire Chaos Fire God realm, maybe that would mean something, Su Zimo replied calmly. But the people of your royal house alone? Not even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. It wasn't arrogance, he was simply telling the truth. The vitality of the Tree of Life was too overwhelming. The sacrifice of the prince's manor couldn't harm him. The sacred flame trinity of sacred flame stared at him in disbelief. The life force around him only grew more immense, vast as the ocean, while the deathly aura weakened bit by bit. This is impossible, they stammered, shaking their heads in despair. They could not believe their defeat, refused to face it. They had wagered the lives of their entire clan, everyone but the children, to unleash this one ultimate move. And yet, against Su Zimo, it hadn't even scratched the surface. That crushing sense of failure shattered them. Take your repentance with you to the netherworld, Su Zimo said. There was a sharp boom from within his body as the life force finally overwhelmed the death energy completely. The supposedly inescapable killing move was neutralized with ease. Su Zimo raised his hand, summoning boundless spirit energy that crashed down from the sky, pinning the three elders where they stood. In truth, even without being restrained, the three could no longer flee. But this way it was guaranteed. Speak, Su Zimo said. Speak of what? Imperial Throne Sovereign asked faintly. His eyes were dull, his heart hollow. So many of his people dead, this was all his fault. What were you researching in that other world? Su Zimo asked. You think we'd tell you? Life-Death Sovereign snorted. We lost because we were weaker, so be it. But don't expect us to hand over our secrets. If I recall correctly, there are still some children of your royal house alive, Su Zimo said. Imperial Throne Sovereign's face changed. Those children were his last hope for the clan's survival. I don't enjoy killing needlessly, Su Zimo continued. Those children can't resist me, and I'd rather not harm them. But if you cooperate, they'll live. If not, well, I don't mind testing how sharp my blade is on their skulls. You'd even threaten children? Are you still human? The three elders roared in fury. You're mistaken, Su Zimo smiled. I want to spare them, but the choice isn't mine, it's yours. Answer my questions, and I'll promise no one else gets hurt. The three fell silent for a long time, clearly torn and struggling inwardly. Finally, Imperial Throne Sovereign spoke. What do you want to know? First, Su Zimo said, about Blade Tyrant. Why did you protect him so fiercely, even risking conflict with a Saint Sovereign? We needed subjects for our Myriad Streams experiments, Imperial Throne Sovereign answered. Since the city he governed, Stone Flame City, was near the fire region, he was the one who captured the Myriad Streams for us. He knew our secret and worked with us. We relied on him for many things. That's why we shielded him. Because of your royal identity, you couldn't act directly, Su Zimo concluded. Exactly, Imperial Throne Sovereign said with a bitter laugh. But now it seems the Chaos Fire God Realm discovered our secret. Otherwise, they'd never have abandoned us in this battle. What exactly is the Myriad Streams? Su Zimo asked. How to explain it? Imperial Throne Sovereign thought for a while, then said, some call it misfortune, others call it an origin. After years of research, we reached a conclusion. The so-called Myriad Streams are, as their name implies, the source of the water race. The water race? Su Zimo frowned slightly. To be precise, Imperial Throne Sovereign said, the water beasts. We tried to condense their power. Normally, water and fire repel each other. But strangely, the Myriad Streams greatly amplify the strength of our fire lineage. So you were exploiting the Myriad Streams to strengthen yourselves, to break through your limits, Su Zimo said. That's right. But the Chaos Fire God Realm forbade us from fusing with the Myriad Streams. Imperial Throne Sovereign replied. The Chaos Fire God realm has always believed that the myriad streams would inflict irreversible harm upon our fire lineage, Imperial Throne Sovereign said bitterly. They fear that the genes of the water beasts will merge with those of the fire god race. But do you understand what that power feels like? Once you've fused with the myriad streams, that feeling, it's intoxicating, impossible to let go. We lost ourselves in that power. I'd imagined many endings, perhaps dying at the hands of the water beasts, or being annihilated by the Chaos Fire God realm. But I never imagined you, a wild card appearing halfway through. Blade Tyrant. So this is fate, Suzimo said quietly, shaking his head. Where is he? In the inner world. He's inside, Imperial Throne Sovereign replied. And much of what you're looking for is in there too. But be cautious of the Chaos Fire God realm. Now that the place has been exposed, they won't let it be. Haven't you heard the saying? The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. So what? Suzimo sneered. What if the one hunting the cicada isn't a mantis, but a demon? What then of your oriole? The three elders sighed softly. With their final breaths, Imperial Throne Sovereign spoke again, his tone carrying a faint plea. Please, spare the children. The sins of us adults should not drag the innocent down with us. Enough. Rest in peace, Suzimo said with a wave of his hand. The aura surrounding the sacred flame trinity dimmed. One by one, their heads drooped, until all life vanished from their bodies. They remained sitting upright like corpses, silent and still. Suzimo spared them no further glance. Instead, his eyes turned toward the depths beneath the tomb, to the mysterious inner world. The three elders must have had a way to enter it, but since they were dead, Suzimo couldn't ask, and didn't care to. He decided to force his way in by sheer strength. He placed both hands on the ground, sensing the flow of space beneath him. Once he located the point of spatial fluctuation, he raised his arm. With a thunderous boom, power surged like a storm. The heavens and earth roared as a colossal palm descended from the sky, smashing down upon the tomb. Explosions rumbled across the ground. When the storm subsided, a massive five-fingered imprint lay before him, so deep it seemed bottomless. Suzimo chuckled. It seems the inner world's barrier is stronger than I expected. He slowly drew Shadow Tyrant. The tip shimmered with blinding sharpness. As the blade pierced downward, the solid earth seemed as fragile as paper. Shadow Tyrant tore through layer after layer of ground, and Suzimo followed, plunging deeper and deeper after it. Finally, the blade tip struck something soft but elastic. The spatial membrane of the inner world, Suzimo thought, eyes lighting up. Shadow Tyrant flared again, its killing intent surging. After a prolonged struggle, a faint pop echoed. The thin membrane gave way. Suzimo's body dropped straight through the opening, into the depths below. Chaotic spatial currents swirled violently around him. He steadied himself, peering through the dark void, searching for any sign of light. At last he saw it, a faint glimmer ahead. The surrounding darkness was so deep that even the smallest light was uncertain, but he pursued it nonetheless. He soared through the endless black, chasing that growing glow. Time blurred. He didn't know how long he'd been flying. The light expanded, brighter and brighter, until it filled his entire vision, then swallowed him whole. When he opened his eyes again, Suzimo found himself standing in a courtyard. It was an elegant, tranquil place. Artificial hills and flowing water painted a picture of serenity. Nearby, peach trees in full bloom blanketed the ground with pink petals. A clear stream cascaded down from the mountain, and the courtyard sat nestled peacefully at its foot. It felt like a hidden paradise, a perfect place for seclusion and old age. Suzimo smiled faintly. Those three old men certainly knew how to choose their retreat. He stepped toward the grand hall. 3 meditation mats lay neatly on the floor, likely where the 3 elders had once cultivated. At the front of the hall stood an iron cage, cold and foreboding. Inside were more than a dozen blue people. Their limbs were pierced through by chains and bound tightly, but though they looked weak, their spirits had not yet broken. "Blade Tyrant, come out," Suzimo called aloud. "There's no need to hide." He already knew the man was here. "How would I dare hide from young Master Su?" came a faint chuckle. From behind the hall, Blade Tyrant emerged. He was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a robe made of tiger hide. His presence carried a natural sense of oppression. A short beard shadowed his jaw, and sweat gleamed faintly on his forehead. Forcing a smile, he said, "I knew you'd come, my lord, so I tidied up the place a bit, to welcome you properly." "I thought you'd have more backbone," Suzimo said. "That you'd rather die standing than live kneeling. Seems I overestimated you." "To be alive at all is already your mercy, my lord," Blade Tyrant said obsequiously. "Unfortunately," Suzimo said coldly, "I don't intend to spare you." "What now?" "From the moment you tried to assassinate me, you were already dead." "Spare me, my lord," Blade Tyrant said quickly. "I'll serve you faithfully. Do anything you command. If you want more of these blue people, I can fetch them for you from the Fire region. I know the place well." "I'll visit the Fire region myself," Suzimo said, shaking his head. His hand fell like a hammer. "As for you, go die." Hearing that, Blade Tyrant's expression twisted. He retreated rapidly, eyes hardening. "If you won't spare me," he hissed, "then we die together." His hands flew into a blur of seals. A flurry of glowing sigils shot forth, merging into the bodies of the blue people. Moments later, low, guttural growls filled the air, like those of enraged beasts. Suzimo glanced up. The sound came from the captives. The once quiet blue people were now thrashing wildly, their strength surging as the chains restraining them snapped apart. "What did you do?" Suzimo demanded, frowning. "Do you know what they truly are?" Blade Tyrant said with a manic grin. "They're the source of calamity. From their essence, countless water beasts were created. When they rage, they can wipe out an entire city." He laughed loudly. "So many of them at once. Even with all your strength, you won't walk away unscathed." Then his tone turned cold. "I wanted peace between us, but since you insist on killing me, don't blame me for taking you down with me." "Water beasts, huh?" Suzimo murmured, eyes narrowing. He ignored the blue people for the moment. Divine might radiated from him like a tidal wave, crushing Blade Tyrant in place. With one motion, Suzimo reached out, seizing Blade Tyrant by the throat, and hurled him into the cage. Blade Tyrant screamed and cursed him furiously, but it was pointless. The moment he landed among them, the blue people lunged. In an instant, the blue people surged forward, swarming over Blade Tyrant. They tore him apart limb by limb, biting into his flesh as if feasting on meat. Blood sprayed everywhere. No matter how he screamed, the frenzy didn't stop until his body was shredded into pieces. Nothing left, not even bones. The scene was grotesque and horrifying. These blue people seemed to have no awareness, only the mindless instincts of beasts. Suzimo frowned slightly. He wanted to know whether these blue people had always been so savage, or if they had been driven mad by torture. Because the blue man he had met back in the god world had shown consciousness, even memories of friendship with the elder who had once abused him. That distinction mattered. But now was not the time to dwell on it. The violent blue people broke free of the cage in moments, the iron bars snapping like twigs. With furious roars, they charged at Suzimo. Suzimo gripped Shadow Tyrant blade, endless killing intent rippling through his gaze. He swung once, sending a powerful arc of blade energy tearing forward. It was only a test strike, yet it sliced one of the blue people clean in half. But in the next second, its body flowed like water and reformed, completely healed. Water has no fixed form, it takes the shape of anything that holds it. These creatures were the same. They seemed unkillable. No matter how many times Suzimo struck, they recovered completely. Now they were upon him. Suzimo leapt backward, retreating swiftly. The power of the ancient god Fire Dao surged in his hands as he summoned the flame of Zhurong. Fire and water, opposed yet intertwined. They reject each other but also coexist. A vast sea of fire burst forth, spreading from Suzumo's body and sweeping toward the blue people. The air sizzled with unbearable heat, scorching the entire inner world. The blue people hesitated for the first time, their pace slowing. Still, their eyes burned with feral intent as they pressed closer. When the flames reached them, they writhed briefly, but soon, astonishingly, they adapted. The myriad streams walked through the fire untouched. Suzumo's frown deepened. The flame of Zhurong was among the mightiest flames in existence, strong enough to burn or evaporate anything made of water. Yet these beings were unaffected. It was unnatural. They continued their relentless assault. Suzumo had no choice but to keep retreating. He couldn't kill them. Fire didn't work. Even he felt momentarily at a loss. Still, he sensed that these blue people were not the same as the ones from the god world. They were of a different kind. After chasing him for a while, the blue people abruptly stopped. They gathered together and then something strange happened. Their bodies began to merge, fusing into a single mass of blue liquid. The pool of liquid spread outward, expanding faster and faster until, within moments, it covered half the inner world. Suzumo realized what they were trying to do: consume the entire inner world, leaving him nowhere to run. He thought quickly. The power of the primal Tao surged within him. This time it was the primal Tao of space and time. He formed the flower of time in his palm, and when it bloomed, time itself froze. The entire inner world was sealed. Suzumo let out a quiet breath of relief. He withdrew his consciousness back to the god world, returning to the blue person there. That one had grown more stable, more self-aware. When Suzumo faced him, he could feel peace within the creature, calm like a gentle stream beneath a bridge. But the blue people outside, their energy was wild, violent, and explosive, as if their very existence wanted to shatter the world. The blue people outside call themselves the Myriad Streams, Suzumo said. Do you know them? He was hoping for a clue, a solution. The blue person hesitated, then spoke weakly, words barely audible. Fire! The sin of fire. They are not what? Suzumo pressed. Not the Myriad Streams? The blue person nodded faintly. Use water. They fear water. Suzumo's eyes lit up. Of course, water. He had never considered using water against them because they claimed to be the Myriad Streams, the very origin of water itself. It made no sense to fight water with water. But now he understood. If these blue people were truly of the Myriad Streams, how had Blade Tyrant managed to capture them and offer them to the sacred Flame Trinity? There had to be a weakness. He returned swiftly to the inner world. The time freeze dissolved, and the world resumed its flow. The blue liquid continued spreading. Suzumo summoned the water primal Tao. As the power manifested, the expanding blue liquid reacted violently, as if meeting its nemesis. It began to contract, shrinking inward. It's working, Suzumo said, eyes gleaming. He intensified the flow of the water primal Tao, the torrent surging like a vast sea. The blue liquid recoiled, shrinking further, as if terrified. With the rising flood, Suzumo sought to drown the entire inner world. The blue mass retreated, cornered, until finally, when the water touched it, smoke began to rise, white and curling, like a flame being extinguished. So that's what you are, Suzumo murmured with a faint smile. Not the Myriad Streams at all, just a raging fire disguised in the shape of water. No wonder the flame of Zhurong couldn't burn them, because their true essence was fire. Fire cannot burn fire. As the floodwaters spread, the blue entity shrank more and more, until at last it condensed into something the size of a jade pendant. Only then did Suzumo dispel the water and stoop to pick it up. It was a small jade ornament, engraved only with the symbol of a sun, nothing else. The Radiant Court? Suzumo murmured. In the Inferno Crucible heaven, anything tied to the sun could only point to one place, the Radiant Court. But it was too early to draw conclusions. The path ahead was still unclear. He slipped the pendant away, glanced around the inner world, now barren and quiet, and turned to leave.